Hello, welcome to the Backlash, a weekly discussion about the past, present, and future of Western civilization. This is our second in-studio guest, right?
I believe no, third. Well, if you count Cameron.
Oh, right. We do count Cameron.
We don't.
So joined by the normal folks, but you guys don't matter because we have a guest. So Dave Riley, Vincent James, Cameron McGregor, how are you guys doing?
Yo,
Great.
What's going on? Vinny Two Phone.
Vinny Two Phone is back. People thought you quit the show
Nope. I was gone for a week.
on vacay.
You were
Not
on
on vacation.
I was telling people
Oh, really?
that
We just told people that.
Oh, yeah.
I was telling people that you had moldy bread and that you were sick in the hospital.
From keeping it out
keeping
of
it
the
in the
fridge.
fridge?
Yeah.
Or from keeping it in the fridge, right.
So we have Sam Parker with us today, based Sam Parker.
Thanks
How
for
you
having
doing?
me.
Of
Doing
course.
Good. Glad to be here. I'm having a good time already and looking forward to being on the show.
How was the drive?
It wasn't too bad. There's like cops every 10 feet.
Yep.
Welcome to Kootenai County, where
Yeah,
you
really.
come on vacation and leave on probation.
Pretty much.
It's so true.
It is very
They
true.
stop you for everything. Well, I guess it's better than having like black shoot things all the time.
White crime is getting pulled over on the highway by the state trooper.
Speeding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they'll pull you over for going 4 miles per hour
Yeah,
over the speed limit here.
absolutely.
It sucks. Before we start, Sam, people were asking me, like, can Sam give us a little backstory? Like, how did he come to be based
Who are
Sam
you and
Parker?
why
Who
should
are
we
you
care?
And why should we care? That is
It all
exactly right.
started one day when my parents know. I grew up in a little town in Washington State, and a little coal mining town, actually. There's a power plant and a coal mine. And, just had a normal American upbringing. My little town was probably about, 99% white or more, and probably about 95% Christian. All my classmates went to church. Like, we went to different churches, but, everybody was white. We all went to church. And I think I was telling Dave yesterday that sometimes on holiday parties, there would be a Jehovah's Witness or two in the class, and they'd go out to the hall while the rest of us would have cupcakes and sing or whatever. But, we didn't suspend the Christmas party or the birthday party or whatever because of, somebody couldn't participate. They went out in the hall, and I don't know what they did out there. I never really asked them. But now I guess they don't have Christmas parties and birthday parties in school and stuff anymore.
What?
So,
They don't do that at all?
I don't think they do, but we learned Christmas songs and the Great American Songbook, all the patriotic songs. My teachers played the piano. This is the kind of American upbringing I had. White teachers playing the piano, singing American patriotic songs and Christmas songs, and
That sounds
Sounds
lovely.
like the America Bill Maher described.
Yeah.
In one clip.
right.
It's the America he's terrified of.
Yeah.
That he's terrified of. Yeah, but and then I was in Boy Scouts, Eagle Scout, went to college, served an LDS mission to Mexico, graduated from BYU. I got involved in politics in Utah later, ended up running for Senate against Mitt Romney in 2018.
Nice.
Because Utah has
Mormon on Mormon.
Mormon on Mormon violence, and it happened. I tried to give him a Welcome to Utah tourist guidebook, and he didn't like it. He took it and hit me with it. Didn't get it on camera because my cameraman was 10 seconds behind me in the building still. He missed it. Always been mad at him for that. Could have gone viral. But so, Utah has an interesting caucus system, for electing political candidates. No other state has it, and it's way too hard to explain. So you can
Coming soon to Idaho. We know all about it.
Is it coming to Idaho?
Maybe.
Well, they've
maybe.
been trying,
We've been
yeah.
Well,
talking
it would be
about
better. It would be better.
It would be better.
So anyway, that allows people like me who don't have a lot of money, not a lot of notoriety, to be able to actually, mount a serious campaign for office. And so I started there and got involved, and then I've just, been on Twitter and social media for years, and just sort of been doing my thing, working my way up and forward, and advocating for the causes that are important to me.
I remember when I first saw you. I think it's time to change your freaking.
It's my brand, Vince. I can't ever change it.
It's time to change your avatar, because I remember when I first saw you. I saw this picture. I literally thought that you were Mexican.
I am as
Until I
white.
met you.
I am as white. Now, listen, I served my mission in Mexico, and I speak Spanish fluently, but I am not Mexican. I have not a lick of Mexican blood in me. I'm Norwegian, Swiss, and
Okay, you have to
English.
explain yourself because
Yeah.
you clearly look Mexican in that picture.
I couldn't tell you why. I mean, do I look Mexican on screen right now on the camera?
No,
I
but you
mean,
look totally.
No.
I expected a tiny
I
Mexican
think it's
man.
because maybe like the lighting with I had an amateur photographer
It's the color correction.
take
on
the
it.
pictures, and it could
It's
it might
true.
just be
He put an Instagram filter on it.
I know.
He put a
Like,
Mexican filter.
Make me a 4'9"
obviously,
Guatemalan.
I
Yeah.
had more of a tan then. I think right now I've been shut in for the winter, and I'm pale as a ghost. So maybe there was a little bit of that too. I don't know.
understand.
But, yeah, I get all the time that I'm fat, but you guys can see me. I'm actually like too skinny.
Yeah, you're pretty skinny.
and I get Mexican, fat, and it's like, but that's just how my picture looks, I guess.
That's weird.
That's
You were really committing to the branding.
Yeah.
I guess running for office is what you got to do.
Yeah, totally.
DEI days.
Yeah. Boy, what a week. We have a lot to talk about. We're going to talk some JFK. We're going to talk Iran. We're going to talk Daily Wire, Gaza. It is every week has been the craziest news week I've ever seen. And this week is no different. So I'm actually shocked that these JFK files were dumped. I didn't find anything. I mean, obviously I haven't gone through the 80,000 pages, but I am waiting for autists on the internet to do that for me.
Same.
And I haven't seen a lot of stuff that's really knocked my socks off. What about you guys?
I mean, just a lot of the stuff that people are posting are from the 2017, 2018 dump. But some of the stuff is new. And, I think some of the things that people are posting, like the thing about like the CIA directly ordering anything that's in brackets, which is pretty funny,
Right.
to be redacted, and everything that's in brackets is about the Israeli intelligence, the Mossad, Israel, Jews, things like that. I think that's pretty funny. But a lot of the stuff that people are posting are from the 2017, 2018 dump. So
Right.
I don't know.
And there's enough
We'll
in
see.
there. I've noticed that whatever predilection you already have, people are just going through the documents and finding something to back up whatever their theory is. Like, if you think the CIA did it, well, here's a guy who was killed after he said the CIA did it. So that means the CIA did
Yeah,
it.
right. Before we move on, I'm retarded and I forgot to tell you where you can find us. We're at Real Backlash on X. Our website is thebacklash.net. If you want to send in super chats today, go to thebacklash.net/super chat.
true.
And we will answer your questions live at
Wrong.
the end.
Streamlabs, PowerChat.live, and Entropy is working. We will read your super chats on Entropy.
That's right. Let's try to destroy that gray bar in the bottom left-hand corner,
Yep.
folks. Let's go.
All right.
Absolutely. We have an ad as well.
Man, I messed up the
You messed up
so
the intro
spectacularly.
so bad.
Antelope
It's my
Hill.
job.
Funny.
The flow of the show is my job, and I've already.
I'm
jacked
a
it.
disruptor. That's what I do.
You're getting-
You
come in
are a
and disrupt.
disruptor.
30 lashes with a wet noodle.
Sounds
So
terrifying.
we would like to thank our sponsors for bringing this wonderful program to you this evening. One of those sponsors being Antelope Hill Book Publishing, America's leading publisher of dissident books, including a wide array of both original works and new first-time translations of important historical titles. Our catalog focuses on bringing you books that mainstream publishers won't touch, books that challenge the ruling orthodoxy on history, politics, and the twisted nature of the system that we live under. Among our titles are works like the Open Society Playbook, a deep dive into the web of NGOs and shadowy government funding that has recently come under fire in the USAID scandal for spreading left-wing ideological corruption at home and abroad. And we are also proud to publish The American Regime by Christian Secor, initially written anonymously by the author while in prison for his actions on January 6th, examining how the American Leviathan functions. If you are listening to this show, you won't be disappointed in these or any of the other books available from Antelope Hill. You can view our catalog and make purchases directly from antelopehillpublishing.com, supporting independent creators and businesses directly. Check us out today.
Escape from Detroit is one of those books. I wonder what that's about.
Do you think they do a racist cookbook?
I think it was about Outback 4, Vince.
I thought it wasn't really.
We should do a cookbook.
A racist cookbook. I've been thinking about it.
Yeah.
Sounds a lot like the Anarchist cookbook.
Except it's going to have like shrimp scampi, like white bread.
Yeah. Mayo sandwich. Yeah.
Not stored in the fridge.
I would like to take this moment to point out that we had some pretty good predictions on the show. Some pretty good predictions about the JFK stuff. You want to pull that up, Dave? Look at that.
Jeez.
Our Thanksgiving episode. Wow, I need to cut my beard. Jeez. It's been a while. But yeah, we predicted this.
What did we predict?
Well,
I don't even remember what you're talking about.
well, we were
Vince is like,
talking
"Where am
about things like the information contained in the book Final Judgment by Michael Collins Piper, great 2-volume series, and also the Unspoken Kennedy Truth by Laurent Guénaud. And basically, the thesis is that the Israeli intelligence services are the ones that were, involved in the killing of John F. Kennedy. And we know this from what we've been seeing recently in the media, this coming from Stu Peters. The CIA requested that any mention of Israel be redacted in the JFK files. Israel is literally the only thing that they are requesting to be redacted. And that is absolutely true.
Look on the left side. It says CIA has no objection for this stuff to be declassified except for the stuff in brackets. And anything and all of the stuff about Israel's in brackets.
Right.
So that was all. So any mention of Israel or Jews or whatever, yeah, there is another one there. Yep. It's all over the place.
Yep.
All of the stuff that's in brackets or any mention of Jews or Israel.
And so when we look at the Stu Peters stuff, it's just one after another, showing that the only thing that CIA was trying to keep out of the spotlight was the Israeli involvement in these things. And of course, we know who the Israeli liaison was. It was a guy by the name of James Jesus Angleton. That's where this initial document comes from, as well as these, talking about Angleton, who handles special cases of various nature and is usually given considerable freedom and leeway I'm not reading it. There we go. Freedom and leeway in directing the operations of his unit. In general, he is responsive only to the director of the CIA. And then they requested that it be blacked out. He has numerous foreign channels for developing information. The primary source is the Israeli intelligence service. In addition to this, he is in contact with Joy Lovestone, who periodically blah, blah, blah. And so...
and that was in brackets.
That was in brackets as well. Well, because that's, sources and means, right? So they don't want to be giving up all of that kind of stuff. Let's see, what else do we have here?
That's so crazy.
There is some new stuff. Well, first of all, Angleton was from Boise. I want to point that out because we are based in Idaho. I visited his grave and spat upon it.
Very nicely done.
Because he is a traitor to this country. I believe that he is primarily responsible, like the primarily responsible person in the CIA for covering all of this up. It seems very clear. And so anyway, this is him with the director of Mossad in 1966. This is a picture, this is like from the Jerusalem Foundation, but this is a little, what do you call that? A memorial that they have for him in Jerusalem for the outstanding work that he did on behalf of the state of Israel, not the state of America, not the United States, but Israel. There are some new things that have kind of come to light that we're still sussing out. Things like this. This is one that I personally found yesterday. The fact that the CIA has false flag offices that they have set up, false flag bases, where they have, people that show up and they pretend to be like Brazilian when in fact they're actually agents of America. They go over there and, attempt to make things happen under a false flag.
Did you find anything that was a surprise, though?
Yes, I did. I mean, there's some really interesting stuff. I mean, I guess it's not really surprising, but there's a lot of stuff that's coming out about the Vatican.
Right.
Yeah, the Vatican's correspondence with the CIA, that the Roman Catholic Church was a key asset in its propaganda network, claiming, quote, exploitable access to its inner workings. And so these are some of those documents that have come out.
So what's the
labor organizations and members of the Catholic Church will also be utilized.
Oof.
Bummer. And so, of course, this is, this gets us into Vatican II, Opus Dei, what we've been talking about on the Stu Peters show.
Catholic Charity, all that
Catholic
stuff.
Charities, all of these subversive organizations that have kind of popped up, sucking at the federal teat, that aren't really working for the interests of Catholics or the faith or preserving the faith. They are working for the American government, which is a development that came out of Operation Gladio. And I know that that's a dead horse that I will continue to beat to death. But there's also some funny stuff. There was this tweet that came out a while ago that I put out. I actually found this document about how there was a Zionist conspiracy that was alleged. The assassination of the great President Kennedy was a shock to Palestinians. Please convey our sincere sympathy to Kennedy family and the people of the United States, claiming that it was the Zionists who murdered the courageous president who was about to destroy the legend of theirs. His assassination is a warning to the rest of the honorable leaders.
This is old, right?
This is old.
Oh, okay,
This was declassified by Joe Biden.
Oh, okay.
Note the
in
date on that too,
2023.
Dave. November 25th. So
It
3
was
days
3 days
after-
later, right.
You know, and what a lot of people don't know is that Kennedy was a big proponent of the Palestinian right of return. And in fact, on November 20th, 2 days before the assassination, he had UN Resolution 1994 reintroduced onto the docket at the UN calling for Palestinian right of return. And he'd made promises to the Arab leaders of the surrounding countries that he was going to get that passed.
Yep.
True.
So that was, people know about the nuclear connection, JFK's fight with David Ben-Gurion over Israel's nuclear program. They know about the effort to register the American Zionist Council, the forerunner of AIPAC, as foreign agents under FARA. But a lot of people don't know about JFK's support for Palestinian right of return.
True.
And, returning 800,000 Palestinians back into Israel that had been displaced in the Nakba also would have been, not good for Israel.
Right.
So another catastrophic, thing for their hegemonic desires, in their terrorist state there. So I think people shouldn't overlook that either.
Yeah,
Right. They
no.
wouldn't have been able to. One of the things I want to point out is, and I was just getting text from a mutual friend of ours, and pull this up. There's a lot of people within the conservative sphere who we call controlled opposition, conservative Inc. These people that are AstroTurf, these people with the biggest voices.
People like Steven Crowder, who
People like
posted
Steven
this
Crowder.
crazy
that
anti-Semitic
crazy?
meme today.
Dude, how crazy is
Unbelievable.
that?
Like, are
Do you
you
think he was
kidding me?
unaware of this?
Did he delete
That's
that?
bait.
Is that still
Why
up?
is no one
That's bait.
talking about this?
Yeah, and it's his promo for his show.
That's a grift.
Does he think that that's like an actual redacted document? Does he
No,
think?
no,
There's
no.
no way. He knows
He
what's
knows what's
up.
up.
He knows what's
Does
up.
he know?
Yeah. Not that he's a good actor, but
But there's a lot of people we talked about Jack Posobiec the other day when someone walked up to him and asked him about the Mossad being involved.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't have any comments on that.
With Epstein, Mossad being
Oh, with-
involved with Epstein.
with
Yeah.
Epstein,
That's the
right,
context
right.
you need there. Was Epstein involved in Mossad? I don't know.
I don't want to talk about that. Cat Turd, DC Drano, whose real name is Rogan O'Handley, who's admitted to
O'Handley.
O'Handley.
Jewish.
Really?
He says he's Jewish.
Oh,
yeah.
I think he's Irish to be sure.
He says he's
It's
Irish
the
and
Irish
Jewish.
this whole time. Glenn Beck, Grant Goodwin, Michael Flynn, surprisingly, Matt Walsh. The usual people are refusing to talk about this. I think there were some people that were doing some pre-posting before this stuff came out. Glenn Beck was like, it's important not to, as these documents come out, it's important not to focus on who done it, but really that it's the deep state and, all this garbage.
Yeah.
And so I think it's very important to highlight, people like that who are not posting any of this stuff that we're going over
It's
today.
incredible. I was just looking at this earlier. Ben Shapiro, his show today, Elon Musk, SpaceX, right? Trump and Putin, Ukraine, the
Yep.
coming tariff war, and nothing about literally the biggest story of
Right.
the past 24 hours, which has been the declassification.
I think Charlie Kirk made one tweet. He said it was one of those kinds of tweets like, "What do you think?" And then he
Right.
moved on and hasn't talked about it since.
Right.
Tim Pool.
Yeah.
Tim Pool's
Pool.
if he's doing the whole CIA did it thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If anybody's not at least including Israel in the discussion, now maybe you don't think Israel did it directly or they didn't have the main hand, but they were certainly involved. And if you're not
Clearly.
at least being honest enough to include them into the discussion, then either you're ignorant or you're purposely obfuscating and gatekeeping.
Yes.
And so, there aren't any other options at this point.
Yep. And there's also, you just mentioned it. I doubt that we have time to really get into it, but we've talked about it on our Thanksgiving episode. And it's a big deal. Is this whole CIA did it narrative? Well, that whole thing came from a guy named Arnon Milchan. Let's see here. I mean, I've got
Yeah,
a video.
he's the
We're not going to
producer.
watch it. But
Oliver
Arnon
Stone?
Milchan,
No, you don't have to watch that, no.
We're not going to watch
Yeah.
it. This is just a 4-minute clip, kind of going through setting some of the stage for this. But Arnon Milchan, this guy right here, was the producer of the 1991 movie JFK, and he went out of his way to name the military-industrial complex, the CIA, everybody except for Mossad. And what's really interesting is that Arnon Milchan is an Israeli spy, right? He was a nuclear spy.
Sam Parker, look at
Yeah,
that.
thank you, Sam. And he was responsible for smuggling out of the United States a bunch of these nuclear triggers that they used for Israel's secret nuclear weapons program, which is one of the reasons why Kennedy was killed in the first place, because he wanted to audit the nuclear reactor at Dimona. And the Israelis did not want him to do that. But he and Ben-Gurion were going back and forth with angry letters, and that kind of culminated in this.
I'll tell you another interesting Kennedy connection to the JFK movie. So not only did Arnon Milchan produce it, of course, you have Oliver Stone, the Jew, who directed it, and he also co-wrote it. The other co-writer was also Jewish. But Frank Mankiewicz was the man who handled the PR for the movie JFK.
Right.
Frank Mankiewicz was the press secretary for Bobby Kennedy. And it was Frank Mankiewicz he was also a former member of the B'nai B'rith. And he's the one that suggested to Bobby that he exit through the pantry instead of out through the ballroom, shaking hands of his followers after he won the California primary in 1968. People have often talked about why did he go out the back, through this pantry instead of out, through the crowd shaking hands like he normally would. And it turns out that his press secretary, this member of the B'nai B'rith, this Jew, Frank Mankiewicz, is the one that suggested he go out through the pantry. And that's where Sirhan, of course, was waiting for him.
But it wasn't Sirhan.
It
was
Sirhan.
Clay, right? It was
Caesar. What's his name? The bodyguard or the police.
Clay Caesar Chavez. I don't remember.
But it wasn't Sirhan. None of his bullets hit JFK. So but he was there. He was supposed to. He missed, right?
Yeah,
but
he shot the ceiling.
Right. But the point is the guy who told Bobby to go out through the pantry is later the same guy who handled, the promotion for the movie JFK.
Wow, that's incredible.
That's crazy.
And then, of course, we have
just
a little
another coincidence, folks.
A brief aside that earlier today there was a massive disruption at CIA headquarters. A guy with a gun showed up and started shooting, apparently. And there was a massive police presence. The streets were shut down. Pretty crazy stuff. Eventually,
MK Ultra asset gone crazy, gone rogue.
Maybe we have this tweet here that the suspect, the barricade incident is what they're calling it, has been resolved. The suspect surrendered.
Barricade incident. What a tactful way to deal with this.
And they've got him in custody.
Interesting.
But that was it. It was over here. They were at CIA, right? CIA.
That's
headquarters.
crazy.
So,
Cameron, is there anything you wanted to add to the JFK discussion before we move on?
No, I don't think so. I just haven't had time to look through it. All I would say is I think what is redacted is becoming more important than what's disclosed.
Of course.
Right.
Of course.
100%. Yeah, there was there are still a lot of things that aren't out yet. People are thinking that everything was released. Not everything was released.
Mm-hmm.
There was this 113-page document that was where they were discussing the Dimona nuclear reactor. That's not out. There was a couple of transcripts of conversations between McCone and Lyndon Johnson. That's not out. There's a bunch of stuff that's
1,500 still redacted documents that have not yet been released.
I'll tell you, when James Angleton, who Dave brought up, was finally ousted in 1974 after almost a 25-year run at the CIA with almost no supervision, they discovered 40 secret vaults. He had 40 secret vaults that they had to drill open. It took them 3 years to catalog the contents and another 6 years to write up the report. And that report, what they found in his 40 vaults, fills 12 legal-sized volumes that have never been divulged.
That's crazy.
Good Lord.
There's a couple of things that came out in the previous document dump, like this. There was this tweet from the AF Post where they talk about this anti-Castro activist with ties to militant revolutionary groups told an ATF informant on November 21st, 1963 in Chicago, quote, "We now have plenty of money. Our new backers are Jews. As soon as we or they take care of Kennedy, ... And President Kennedy was assassinated shortly after that.
can you pull that up? Make it big.
Yeah, this is the actual document. Here, we now have plenty of money. Our backers are Jews. As soon as we or they take care of Kennedy, ... And so Kennedy was actually invited to this event by B'nai B'rith members.
The one in Dallas.
Right. That's who got him there. and it was B'nai B'rith members who owned the buildings where the shots were allegedly fired
Daltech's
from.
building.
Daltech's building. And so, you've got the motive, you've got the evidence. This is usually like what you need in court to prove that someone's guilty, right? And this is something that, again, people
Murder,
are still trying to cover up.
motive means,
Right.
there's 3 M's or something. Yeah, motive means an opportunity.
And the Apollo affair, this is another thing that I don't think a lot of people still know about, the New Mech affair, the Apollo affair. This is another big one because if you look this up on Wikipedia, it talks about how this was an incident in which a U.S. company, New Mech in Pittsburgh, was investigated for losing 200 to 600 pounds of highly enriched uranium that they
it's more than that.
suspected
Whoops.
more than that.
Whoops, just lost it. Oops, just lost track of it.
Yeah.
Don't know where it went. Oopsie daisy.
And this company was run by a guy named Zalman Shapiro, and
Oh.
they suspect that it went to
coincidence.
Israel's nuclear weapons program. There's this article that I went over on my show, how Israel deceived the U.S. and built the bomb. It talks about how Kennedy was like ordering all of these investigation after investigation after investigation. They literally set up fake control rooms and fake control panels to deceive the investigators. And Lyndon Johnson basically ended most of the investigations after Kennedy died.
Wow.
So Kennedy dies, Israel gets the bomb. AIPAC, the modern version of AIPAC is created because
In
you had
1963.
Right, in 1963. That's the year that they were founded. You had the first iteration of AIPAC, which was the American Zionist Council, which is Kennedy was also trying to get registered as a foreign agent.
Right.
So all of these things happened directly after Kennedy
And then you've got the
dies.
United States going off of the silver standard. We changed our coins. Vatican II happened. Hart-Celler Act, Fair Housing Act, Martin Luther King Civil Rights Act, and basically the destruction of America was complete within 10 years.
Oh, also included in this Apollo
Black
affair
pill.
thing. Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
Real black pill. Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was some people involved in this Apollo affair that were also involved with Jonathan Pollard too.
Right?
So
Wow.
And James Angleton had relationships with some suspected relationships with some of these people, and he was the head of CIA's counterintelligence while all of this was going on, and apparently he just didn't see any of it.
Right. Right. Well, not only that, but he was like sending people off like, I think there's a mole in the CIA.
Yeah.
It's that guy over there. Investigate him. And then he's like, hey, guys, I got him. They'll be like busy for 6 months. It's okay. Like very obvious what was going on back then.
Well, let's talk about why Trump released these and not the Epstein files, which I don't think he's ever going to release.
No.
He's obviously implicated in those in some meaningful way.
Yeah.
Otherwise, these would have come out at the same time. So why did he do this now? I think that people were demanding a win in some way. And he thought that this probably wouldn't change many people's minds, which I don't really think that it has.
No.
And it looks like he is delivering on something that he's promised, which I suppose he is. But he's never going to regain the trust of the American people, especially as he continues to support the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians. The ceasefire broke this week. 413 killed in Gaza, women, children. It's absolutely horrible. We do have some footage also of this neighborhood hit in Yemen.
Well, that was Yemen.
Yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit too.
Okay. Let's
Let's pull up the ground invasion of Gaza and the land division, that tweet. Okay, Israeli forces just began reoccupying the corridor in Gaza, redissecting it into 2 halves. Israel has now fully, I am so blind. Can you finish reading this?
They have fully violated every clause of the ceasefire agreement's phase 1. They are now re-implementing the 5 fingers policy of dividing Gaza into concentration camps. And so what they were talking about was the Netzarim corridor right here, basically where they're going in and there's Gaza City proper. They're cutting off the routes from north to south across these lines in Gaza, preventing anybody from really evacuating. They've got them in a kill box.
And that's the reason why I think that it's really important to get out in front of this narrative in terms of the Kennedy documents, because the more that people find out about this, that if we win this narrative war between Con Inc. and us and the rest of the people on Twitter, if this becomes if this goes to the forefront and more people recognize who was the main culprit behind the assassination of JFK, people will have less and less patience for shit like this.
Right.
Like they won't be able to get away with what they've done for a long, like it's the Kennedy assassination, it's, 9/11, maybe comes next, it's
Do you think
really
that that's why
important.
Trump released the documents as a distraction? Because obviously the White House is behind this.
I think that they were trying to pull a fast one on the American people, and they completely botched it with that fake sort of Epstein file
Right.
release
Binders episode.
bullshit.
Yeah.
And so they needed to do something, and I think Trump was just like, screw it. It's kind of like the J6ers, fuck it, release them all. That's what he said, right? So like, I think that's kind of like what happened here.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot of shit missing.
Yeah.
And maybe they didn't expect,
There was also like no cohesive narrative given. Like if you went to the actual archives.gov website, you're just hit with like 3,000 PDFs, no names, no headings. It's just numbers. .pdf,
But
all
they
down this
remember
page.
WikiLeaks. They clearly know the power of the internet to dissect these things and get all of the available information out of it in an
people
organized
are.
fashion. And people are, of course, doing that. So it's not like it's going to be a surprise to Trump that the internet is doing this.
Well, that's why we need to do it quick.
Right.
And we need to get this out there, and we need to win.
I'll be
Speaking
interested
of-
to see if somebody can use AI to, upload however many tens of thousands of these documents and see what AI spits
Yeah.
out.
I think they've already done it. Can we pull up this Aaron Matei tweet?
Yeah. I was going to say, speaking of WikiLeaks, while I've got it up,
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
even WikiLeaks is jumping on this because they know
Yeah.
what's up. They're not dumb.
and people, when you hear people say, "Oh, the CIA did it," think James Angleton. Like
Right.
James Angleton was Israel's boy, at the CIA. He was head of the Israel desk, right? He covered up for them all over the place. You can read all about it. He up to his eyeballs in relationships with
And
the
he
Israelis.
wanted Dulles to stay.
Did he?
Yeah.
Well, because Dulles wasn't supervising him, I think, right? I mean,
Well,
Dulles appointed him to be the head of counterintelligence.
Well, wasn't it right? But also, right, exactly. So wasn't Dulles replaced by McCone?
Right, in 1961
By JFK.
by JFK.
Because Dulles didn't want to go after Israel.
Really?
Right.
I mean, that's how my understanding of it.
yeah.
Right. And McCone did. McCone was fine with like going after Israel and making sure that they didn't develop the bomb. Dulles wanted them to
Unfortunately,
have
they
a
left
bomb.
Angleton in place, who
Right.
then became unsupervised. After they got rid of Dulles, he had no supervision, and he was running his own CIA within the CIA for
Right.
like 15 years or something.
Little
It's
click.
crazy.
Yeah. And that has led
Well,
to.
that's all true, but one thing that you're missing is that this is not just about Israel. Now, obviously, when it comes to Kennedy, it looks like they had outsized influence, but the other issue here, and part of the reason why you're not going to see any resolution to any of this, is that the CIA, and I think that's what these documents demonstrate as well, is a rogue organization. Okay, certainly it's been subverted by Mossad and other forces potentially, but nobody controls the CIA, nor have they for decades. That means that you're not going to get any substantive change in Washington, D.C. until you completely terminate and reorg the CIA. That probably goes doubly for the NSA and the FBI. You don't shake up those organizations, you're not the president, and we're not getting meaningful change.
Yep.
True.
Aaron Matei always has the best takes on these things. He was on Judge Knapp, and then he tweeted this out. You're going to have to read it for me again. Sorry.
Okay.
I need my glasses.
You need the glasses. Trump could have told Netanyahu to implement phase 2 of the ceasefire deal and bring the remaining captives home. Instead, he gave Netanyahu the green light to impose a new blockade and now a new massacre of defenseless civilians in the besieged Gaza death camp. Israel first.
Right. I mean, so
Yes, the problem with this tweet is the premise that Trump tells Netanyahu anything. It's quite the reverse, right? Netanyahu exerts far more power and influence inside Washington, D.C., and that's very specifically through AIPAC. It's through all the representatives, not just in the representatives in the House and the Senate, but also in the policy making, the think tanks, the donor classes, so forth and so on. Donald Trump does not have the leverage to tell Netanyahu to do X or Y. Netanyahu is a free agent. Donald Trump has a choice. Either he can completely give Netanyahu everything he wants, or he can try to create free space to maneuver for himself. I think he's actually doing a mix of things, which we'll get into in a minute when we talk about the Houthis. But it is clearly Netanyahu who's driving the show, not Donald Trump.
I heard Max Blumenthal say on Judge Knapp that MAGA stands for Miriam Adelson's goals achieved.
True.
I was like,
That's a really good one.
Very good. I wish that I had thought of that. We should now. Actually, let's pull up this Elon simping for Netanyahu tweet. For those of us that were, that wasn't us, but some people were wildly optimistic that Elon was not going to be more of the same. I think that we can put that to bed. Can you read this?
In America and in Israel, when a strong right-wing leader wins an election, I can't do Netanyahu. The leftist deep state weaponizes the justice system to thwart the people's will. They won't win in either place. We stand strong together. And then Elon coming in with the hundreds.
Yeah, I mean,
bullshit. Absolutely. Because especially when you look at the situation in Israel, you've got Netanyahu now who is trying to fire the AG of Israel. You've got him, he's trying to dissolve the Shin Bet, which would be the equivalent of dissolving the FBI in America. And the reason is because there has been an open corruption investigation into Netanyahu since he reassumed power. What year was that? Was it 2021? Was it 2020 when he came back?
2022.
Right. And so there was this ongoing corruption case that was going on, looking into him, looking into the Epstein type stuff, looking into all kinds of corruption in Israel. There were protests in the streets. I remember talking about it and getting made fun of it by Zionists. Like, what does this idiot know about what's going on in Israel? And then, as a matter of fact, it blew wide open and everybody was up in arms about it. And then, he needed his new 9/11. Which we got in October 7th.
Yeah.
That's part of it, Dave, but the issue is actually much deeper than that. So when he says the deep state, Netanyahu knows what he means in an Israeli sense. There is a deep state in Israel, I suppose you could argue, although it's very different from the deep state in the United States. The deep state, I think it's just the state, right? We've talked about this before in the US. But in Israel, what he's talking about is a split. And some people, I've mentioned him before, his name is Ilan Pappé. Everybody should read his work. He's an Ashkenazi Israeli and a scholar who's written about the Nakba. He's written about Israeli politics, a very brave and courageous man. But he frames it as follows. There is a state of Judea. These are fundamentalist, messianic settlement Jews led by Netanyahu, principally. But ultimately, what Netanyahu had to do in 2022 was to build a coalition that were non-Ashkenazi. And he harnessed a couple parties to do that. One is called the Atzma Yehudit, which is the Jewish Power Party, right? And the other is Ha-Zayunat, which is the religious Zionism. Now, these parties represent a new wave of power inside the state of Israel. They are specifically Sephardic Jews for the most part, but they're kind of taking power after decades and decades of the Ashkenazis, who are more liberal, it seems, in this current environment than the hardcore Netanyahu Licudites. So effectively what's going on is that Netanyahu is trying to get entire control of the government and push out the Ashkenazis, who represent the legacy parties and the legacy bureaucrats that dominate a lot of Israel. Now, in addition to that, he's also trying to circumvent the court system. And the court system, as I understand it, is dominated by a lot of Ashkenazis inside Israel who are not happy with Netanyahu. Some of that population, as I've mentioned before, is actually leaving Israel and has in droves, and they represent the economic power inside Israel. And they're not necessarily supportive of the Seventh Front War that Netanyahu is fighting. Now, I say all of that to say this. Part of the reason the ceasefire has broken is because Netanyahu has to keep the war going to avoid being prosecuted by that legacy deep state, as he calls it. And so he's got to press ahead. That's what he's doing.
Why is Cameron delayed? Did you see that?
It's just because the CIA is just making sure that they can inject some sort of AI model in there in case he goes off script. It's okay. No big deal.
And for those of the Con Inc. that were reportedly skeptical that this was some pretense for a war with Iran, I think that it's become obvious at this point that that was what it was always about, right? We did talk a little bit on Wednesday about Trump popping off on Truth Social, if you could pull that up.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
We don't have to read this whole thing, although your impression of him is just
I can do a little bit.
You want to do a little bit?
I can do a little
He
bit.
did a 10 out of 10 impression. He read the whole thing on Wednesday's show.
This one?
Don't.
I'm not going to read the whole thing.
Vince is like, no. Just a little
Every
bit.
shot fired by the Houthis will be looked upon from this point forward as being a shot fired from the weapons and leadership of Iran, and Iran will be held responsible and suffer the consequences, and those consequences will be dire.
Right. I mean, it's no surprise to any of us that this is how things are playing out.
Yeah. No, it's all about war with Iran. It all goes back to those PNAC documents.
Yep.
You know, where they listed out 6 or 7 countries in the Middle East: Syria, Jordan, Iraq, Iran, Egypt, all of them to be overthrown.
I think that was the memo that Wesley Clark was talking about.
What memo?
I think it was that. I think it was the PNAC.
7 countries in
Yeah.
5 years.
I
7
think
countries in 5 years.
Oh,
was that.
100%. 100%.
Cameron, do you think that Trump is just devoted to the plan? Is this about financial incentive? Do you think that they actually have very serious blackmail on him? What do you think is going on here? I mean, do you think that he believes that they are the chosen people and that he's acting out some greater spiritual plan?
No, well, no to the latter part of your question for sure. As it pertains to what they have on him, Sam and Vince probably, and Dave too, know better than I do. I don't know. Let's talk about the tweet for a moment, though, because my read of Trump is always a little bit nuanced. If you bring up the tweet one more time, I think that for whatever reason, and we can certainly speculate, Donald Trump is hostage to AIPAC. Okay, as I said a moment ago, ultimately Netanyahu tells him what to do. That being said, Trump has consistently been against war. Since the time that he was a public figure before he ran for president, he opposed the Iraq War, for example. I think that Donald Trump is doing whatever he can to avoid war and satisfy the lobby at the same time. So what he's doing is he's trying to bluff his way through by sending out these ridiculous tweets. I think he's done similar things with regards to Russia and Ukraine. Okay. Now, the question is it going to work? And what does this mean? If Dave, if you bring up a map of the Red Sea and Yemen, you'll see that this is a very strategic part of the world. So I think it's like 20 or 30% of oil and natural gas products, things like that, flow through the Red Sea any given year. Okay. Virtually the same number, a bit higher, flows through the Straits of Hormuz. These straits are extremely fraught. They're very difficult to control. Now, the Houthis gained control of Yemen in recent years and are basically being supplied, as far as we understand it, by the Iranians. Now, it's not just Iran. They're not just proxies of Iran. You'll hear a lot of mainstream people say that. It's very difficult to control actors in the Middle East, okay, flat out. So the Houthis are basically operating as independent agents, but they're being, to some degree, armed and equipped by Iran. That being said, as you can see, the shipping routes are crucial on the one hand. However, Yemen is also either on again or off again war with the Saudis at the moment. It's off again. And Iran and Saudi Arabia are also sort of fighting by proxy through Yemen. Now, Yemen is also involved in attacking our ships. And as far as I can gather, the U.S. Navy has not been able to deal with them, nor do I think they can deal with them. Okay, I just don't think we have the power to do so. So the issue is that if there's permanent disruption here, you're going to get a regional war. There's no question about it. By implication, it will involve Iran and Saudi Arabia on the one hand, but it also involves Egypt, because Egypt at the moment, their economy is suffering. They have high inflation. And if shipping doesn't go through some of these areas, Egypt's economy is also hurt. And as I've mentioned in a recent show, Egypt has also mobilized large numbers of forces in the Sinai. So all that is to say that we should not be involved in this whatsoever. We have no national interest really to go to war with the Houthis at this moment. I think Trump is trying to bluster his way through to satisfy the lobby. I don't think it's going to work.
And it's a little bit more nuanced and way more complex than, what we're used to dealing with in terms of, starting regional wars, creating sort of societal chaos, and then sort of doing like a color revolution from within and collapsing the regime and replacing them with a puppet. You can't really do that. Well, I guess we did that. With,
We've done that over and over and
no,
over
I'm just
again.
saying in Iran, where there was the
we got rid of the
1970s. Yeah.
Or no, we got rid of Mossadegh and
Right,
replaced him with the Shah.
Mossadegh. Right. So I don't know if that is possible today, though. I mean, what do you think, Cameron? Like, is that the goal here? Is the goal to sort of maybe not do like an actual war and maybe do like a regime change? I mean, you've seen all these protests pop up every so often there in Iran, and you know that it's like the CIA doing it.
Women letting their hair down,
right?
Dressing like whores,
like that, right?
Yeah.
The issue is that there is this guy. His name is Netanyahu. Okay, and Netanyahu is.
You may have heard of him.
He's under siege in Israel for the reason that we just mentioned. That's one component. The second component is that even though there is internal discord inside Israel, there is a broad consensus now that any two-state solution is dead, but furthermore, that the Palestinian problem must be dealt with, okay? That consensus has been reached. That's why these attacks are resuming. And by the way, Gaza is just one of the 7 fronts, as Netanyahu understands it. Another one of those fronts is the West Bank. And there's also activity that's going on there. That's one part of this. Another part of this is the Arab League. The Arab League basically consists of the corrupt, decadent, and degenerate leadership that runs the Arab world today. They're worthless for the most part. They don't represent the Arab street, and they don't want to do anything about the ethnic cleansing in Gaza or war against Hezbollah or war against Iran. They don't want to deal with it at all. However, the Arab street does want to deal with it. And that means that if Netanyahu continues to press this war forward and we subsidize it, eventually some of these Arab regimes, specifically in a country like Jordan, will collapse. And that means that you will get more instability, sure, but you will get that 7-front war. You'll get a regional war in which Israel will find itself fighting multiple enemies on either side. Never mind the geopolitical implications of BRICS, like the Russians and Chinese and others who may come in on the side of Iran and the rest. In other words, this is a very spring-loaded situation. And the third piece, of course, is Donald Trump. But as Sam and the three of you mentioned, Donald Trump is beholden to Israel. So he's stuck. And so is the United States.
Right. I'm just wondering, because like you have this sort of like Arab coalition, right? And I'm just wondering if they can get to Iran from within before you have this sort of crop up. I mean, like you would have thought that it would have happened already, right? With all this, with what's happening with Gaza, you would have thought that there would have been some sort of revolt, some sort of, Arab revolt. I mean,
there is some element of suppression that seems to be going on.
Yeah, I know. It's sort of weird, like looking at it. Because I remember there was this video of Gaddafi talking about this, and he was talking about the Palestinians, and it's like a 30-second clip.
I'll get it.
Let's see if I can play this real quick.
Do you have it?
Yeah, I have it. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I don't know if people can read this. Let me just minimize this here real quick so people can read this. There's no sound, but it says at this time, Palestinians, the Israelis are not fighting against the Arab nation. They want to establish an empire. And so basically what he's saying here, I thought it would have sound.
If you
basically
go on your
what he's saying here,
settings and choose the right setting,
basically
output
what he
the
was saying
roadcaster.
here
We'll have a production meeting on air real quick. Hold on. No show is complete without an on-air production meeting.
Yeah, that's true.
You've got to get this. You've got to get it going. You can do it.
Basically, what he's saying here is that what Cameron said is that eventually, if you push them far enough, you're going to have the Arabs all come together, and there's going to be a war, and we're going to be pulled into that war, no matter what.
And of course, the Christian
Zionists. This too, just real quick, Dave. This too. Amidst what I think is a recession that's begun in the United States, a very likely war with Mexico that we talked about, I think, a couple episodes ago. So the United States internally is very fragile. Okay, there's no question about that. Israel internally is very fragile. However, both in Jerusalem or in Tel Aviv and in Washington, D.C., the sense is from the elites, and I think we'll touch on this later in the show as well. The sense is that the Arabs are hopelessly divided and weak. They won't do anything. And we, being the U.S. military, have asymmetry over everybody. Now, I'm here to tell you that's not true. The U.S. military, especially the U.S. Navy, is in ruins. It's not just our equipment or personnel. We're overextended, right? We would not have the logistical infrastructure to support a protracted struggle. But guess who doesn't really know that? Netanyahu and Likud, and as I said, this sort of coalition of messianic settlement Jews that want to utterly destroy the Palestinians and anybody else who gets in their way.
How can they not know that?
This war is on. I think that, as I've said before, I think that you're dealing with a group of people who are motivated by this extreme vision, and you're seeing this in the United States too. That's an eschatological vision. Okay, they see the finish line ahead of them. They see end times of this struggle, and they think the time is now to do it. In some sense, it is logical because even though we have this show, and there's I would say a furious uproar on Twitter and other platforms against the lobby, against Zionism, even though that's the case. They control the government, the Western governments today, in ways that they never have before. And so their view is now is the time to strike.
And of course, a lot of this, what you're talking about, this radicalism, this religious extremism that's present in both the Jews, but it's also present in Christian Zionism. And
Yes.
this is the verse that always gets pointed to. It is Luke 21:20. And when you shall see Jerusalem compassed about with an army, then you will know that the desolation thereof is at hand. And of course, you've got these psychotic Christian Zionist pastors that are calling this a fulfillment of biblical prophecy. And of course, it's like, if you take what they're saying at face value, it's like, oh yeah, we want all of the Jews in Israel to get genocided.
It's an interesting,
It's
really
really
interesting
wild.
cognitive dissonance because they're like, oh, we have to bless Israel and support the Jews in Israel. And they hold that on the one side, but then on the other side, well, we
Israel's
want
gonna die.
Christ to come back, and it's like, it's like weird cognitive
Right.
dissonance.
Well,
I don't know what
it
else to
isn't
call
logical. If
Yeah.
this was ordained by God, why would they have to invest so heavily in all of the moving parts? Which they are, obviously.
Right. Well, I mean, it depends. So you've got the Chabad people, right? They think that the redemption of Israel is going to come about by their own works. Then you've got other groups like the Haredis that think that the Messiah is going to plop a temple down on top of the Dome of the Rock magically or something like that. I mean, honestly, a lot of this stuff is covered in this book right here. If You Believed Moses by Father James Maudsley, Catholic priest,
who's coming on
volumes
Monday.
1 and 2. He will be on the show on Monday. We'll be able to talk about a lot of this biblical prophecy stuff with him, get some answers about, what the truth of the matter is, because all of these Bible verses, I believe, are being taken way out of context. Like the verse here in Luke, that's actually about when the Romans encompassed Jerusalem in 70 AD and destroyed the temple, finished the Jewish religion forever. They no longer have a temple. They cannot complete the sacrifice. Their religion is dead. They're blind, and they killed God. They killed Jesus Christ, and they're lost forever because of that, and have been banished to live as a diaspora
And by the
throughout
way,
the
the
world.
Christians of the time, according to Eusebius, fled to Pella. They didn't stay behind and defend their Jewish brethren against the Roman onslaught. They left.
They
bugged out.
followed what happened in verse 21. Let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains, and those who are in the midst
And that's what
thereof
they
depart
did.
out.
They went to Pella.
That's what they did. And then the crazy ones, they went to Masada.
Yeah.
And they continued fighting. And then 150 years later, the Bar Kokhba revolt, they tried to reestablish the temple then, and the ground literally caught on fire, and they couldn't do it. And then I think it was Emperor Hadrian, again tried to reestablish the temple. And once again, there was an earthquake, or the ground caught on fire, and they were literally unable to do it for miraculous reasons. It's actually kind of wild. You should look into it.
Well, the faith of the evangelical community is about to be tested because, part of the reason why the CIA has been able to regime change, the neocons have been able to launch these military interventions that have destroyed whole nations, destabilized whole regions, is because the average American isn't really affected. He can go to Starbucks, he can get his latte, who cares? This is different. If we go to war with Iran, if this regional war happens, which I'm telling you is coming, As you can see on the map, right, these are choke points that affect global supply chains. The United States is already, from an economic standpoint, very fragile. You will see energy costs rise. You will see inflation reflash. We will go into a global recession, and there will be serious consequences for us at home. My sense is, and I suppose I pose this as a question to the group as well, because I just don't know the evangelical community the way that you guys do. But my sense is if that happens, whatever support there is for Israel will collapse. Never mind if there is any mention of a draft. And that's basically what it would take to fight an entire region on behalf of Israel. In other words, I don't think anybody would support that.
I think they are absolutely dogmatic about it, and they will see this through. I do not see support for Israel collapsing within the evangelical community.
But I think it's mostly amongst the older population, though. We've seen the latest polls where overall support for Israel in America is at, 46%? And America is still, nominally around 70 to 75% Christian from, the latest figures. That means a lot of Christians no longer support Israel already.
Right.
And a lot of that's skewed towards the older crowd, the boomers, the late Gen Xers and so on. And as these and that's to Cameron's point, I think that's another reason why the Israelis are seeing now is the time, because they know that a massive portion of their support base is from the boomers who are on their way out. They got one foot out the door. And when they're gone, you definitely are going to see a cratering of support for Israel.
Okay.
When they all die off in 2060 or something, whatever the year is. But yeah, no, I think I don't know. I don't know what the questions are on these polls. I see these polls all the time. I've looked at some of the questions. The questions are kind of questionable themselves in these polls. But again, that's why I think things like this JFK thing, they're very important to continue to talk about, because, if the majority of the population, and listen, the majority of the population, they're not on Twitter. You walk down the street of Coeur d'Alene, you go into a shop, you start talking about this stuff, they're going to think you're freaking crazy.
Right.
Like, the majority of the people are just like, they just like don't pay attention to this stuff, or they get their news, even if they are conservative, they're going to get their news from Matt Walsh, they're going to get their news from Charlie Kirk, they're going to get their news from these sources. And so it's very important for us to win this narrative battle on Twitter about things like JFK, so that we sort of force Charlie Kirk, we force people like this to then talk about it, to be forced to take our side in this information war, narrative war, so that then those people get their information, they start hearing about stuff like this. And then once
isn't this why they had to nuke TikTok? This is why they had to take over TikTok.
One of the reasons.
Because 1/3 of Americans were getting their news from TikTok, is a statistic I remember. 1/3.
And what was the news? They were talking about Bin Laden's letter to America.
Right.
Israel did 9/11.
Israel did 9/11.
Well, this is also why Daily Wire is failing, because they are not following this trend.
Right.
They're not following this trend. They lost Candace Owens. I don't know why they lost, what's the hot chick with the big nose?
Brett Cooper.
Brett Cooper. I don't know why they lost Brett Cooper, but I would imagine that they're treating their employees badly. But the big one to lose was Candace. I think that they're pretty much governed by Jeremy Boring and Ben Shapiro. Can we pull up that Jeremy Boring tweet? Bad day for American Jews in the outline.
This one, yes.
Bad day for American Jews.
I know.
What, because his company's failing?
Can you read that for me, Dave?
Yes. Yesterday was a terrible day for American Jews. The embrace of so many prominent voices of demented, conspiratorial, anti-Jewish voices is one of the saddest, most alarming events in my lifetime. This way lies madness, and worse than madness. Do not let the times cost you your soul. Audience capture and unchecked tribalism are tools of the devil. Paranoia and revisionism are too, even if they really are out to get you. Heck, even a righteous cause can lead us to evil if we don't guard our hearts in the quest. The wicked often prosper, and the temptation to prosper often tempts us to join them. But only God offers the richness of salvation, and he already became for us the only Jewish scapegoat for our sin and fear.
What?
What the heck? Leave the rest of them alone.
So as you can imagine, he was massively ratioed in this, and this preceded, I think this was last week, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago?
Scroll down. I think I might have one of the.
Nice.
Right,
March
no, I did.
6th.
Oh, maybe not anymore.
So this precedes him leaving just by a few weeks. I'm sure it was already in the works by this point.
There it is.
Hold on. Let me pull this up. There's Sam's tweet. Have you tried telling Jews about unchecked tribalism? It's impossible to take it
It
seriously.
truly is. It truly is. And then, of course, we've seen Candace move to the other side. Whether or not that is authentic, I'm not really sure. that it matters because it represents a shift in the Overton window whereby you are no longer going to be relevant if you don't talk about Israel and the supremacy of the Jewish people. And that's what's happening with Daily Wire. Can we pull up this Axios graphic on the Daily Wire?
Which
Oh, well,
graphic?
there it is. That's good.
Oh, yeah. Okay, hold on. There we go.
So this week, Daily Wire's CEO, Jeremy Boring, to step down. They put out some cookie cutter statement about how he's moving on to other projects and how he's going to be working on Paradragon, blah, blah. But what this really sounds like is that they're cratering financially. I think that they're in massive amounts of debt.
Yep.
Ian Carroll talked about that. Apparently he has some inside sources.
Apparently, Ben Shapiro had to come out of pocket with his own shekels.
Oh, yes, he did.
Yeah.
I think he put like
Glorious.
several $1 million. This is 8 minutes, so we don't
We're
have
not
to go.
going to play it, but it's just showing that it's there. We're trying, Ian, if you're watching, we're trying to get you to come on the 7th. I'm going to give him a call later today. I don't like calling people
Are
anymore.
you name dropping again?
Me?
Yeah.
Name dropping.
You got his phone
We need
number?
to. We need to.
Well, yeah, he
we
came to
need
Idaho.
cough up some change. Hey, let's get some more super chats. Maybe we can fly him out here
That'd be awesome.
and get him.
yeah.
in,
That'd be fun.
Get him
Yeah.
in studio.
There's the. I'm sorry, Rebecca. Go ahead.
Nope, that's okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, look, this Daily Wire thing, I'm not intimately familiar with the details the way that you are, and I do tend to agree with the basic assessment that they have tanked because of the JQ or their unwillingness to deal with it. That being said, there's something bigger that's happening here. So if you go back to 2017. There was a nonprofit, it's really just a leftist activist group or Zionist group called Data and Society. They
we
published
know
something
this.
called they published something called the Alternative Influence Network.
Yeah.
Okay?
I am right in the
This,
middle of that graphic.
Yeah,
Sit
I
on
think
the
you
belly.
were on it. I mean,
Right in the belly
I
of the
think
beast.
Vince was.
Yeah.
There were a lot of folks. But what's noteworthy, and there's a graphic, I don't know if you can find it, Dave, but there's a graphic that showed all of these various content creators. Even people like Ben Shapiro were included at the time. However, what's happening here is that there's a fragmentation in the media world. All right. So if you go back 50 years, there was only a few major networks that dominated all of the mainstream press. And that's where Americans went to get their news.
There it is.
That has essentially collapsed. All right. And that's left a kind of gap in which alternative media has tried to sort of coalesce influence. And I think it has to some degree. However, that gap still hasn't been filled. Now, I say that to say this. Part of what you're going to see happen over the next decade or so, as these legacy institutions collapse, right? We're seeing that in media, we're seeing it in the banking system, we're seeing it in foreign policy, et cetera, is a new media landscape. Now, part of the reason, folks, that we started this program is because what has been missing from alternative media is a kind of professionalism. People still want the bells and whistles of a Fox News. They just don't want to be lied to anymore. So the future is going to be marrying professional quality content with that alternative media influence. That's where we're headed. And if the public doesn't trust you, if you don't deliver that hard-hitting information, truth, whatever, you're going to lose market share and go out of business. That's what happened, I think, to the Daily Wire, and I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah, I agree. And Tim Pool, I think, is probably headed the way of the dodo bird. I don't know if you guys watched any of his coverage on JFK.
Look at that. Tim Pool
Yeah.
right next to Blonde in the Belly of the Beast.
There I am.
Yeah, no, I was looking at a couple of his tweets. In fact, I think I have.
It was astounding how evasive he was because he always has Libby Edmonds. What is her name? She's from Post Millennial. She's accostingly Jewish.
Oh,
Right.
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, no, this one here. I was looking at this.
Is that
tweet
confirmed?
Here. I think so.
I'm
I think she
confirming it.
admitted that.
I'm only basing that on her face. That's
I searched her tweets, and if you search her tweets for certain key search terms, she all but admits it. It leaps off the page.
Okay.
It's not 100%, but like it's as close as you can. In my opinion, it's about as close as you can get without being 100%.
okay.
So this is Tim Pool's tweet, his main tweet. JFK files released.
Bro, center your browser.
Oh, sorry.
Jeez.
We
what are you doing?
Well, we have to figure that out. Why that does that?
Oh,
Okay, it says here the day after the assassination, Gary Underhill left Washington in a hurry. Anyway, this thing basically says the CIA was responsible.
Everybody,
for the
all these
assassination.
alt-right, or not alt-right, but all these Con Inc. influencers were posting about this today. They
Right.
were really trying to keep the focus
The
on the
CIA was the culprit.
Yeah.
Right. That's why I think this is so important, and a lot of people are sort of missing this. Like, a lot of people don't understand why I continue to talk about JFK every chance that we can get, especially when these documents get released, is because this is so important. Because if we can win this narrative battle and these people can go away, then we win the people.
Well, and Vince, who cares about JFK? The boomers care about JFK because they were alive and they witnessed it. They
lived
witnessed
through
it.
it.
It was part of their life, right?
Yeah.
Like all these immigrants, we've had what, 20 plus million immigrants come in the last 10 years into America, legal and illegal. They don't care about JFK. The however 50, 60 million that have come in since 1990 or 2000, they don't care about JFK. Who cares? They don't care. It's the boomers. If we can capture some of these boomers who, like, JFK is in their heart and soul, and show them that Israel did this to their hero.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a Hail Mary. It's a bit of a Hail Mary, but now you maybe have something.
And the thing, there are a lot of boomers waking up. I have gotten several phone calls from boomers that go to Zionist churches that are like, holy crap, you've been right this entire time. I can't believe I didn't see it. My pastor's lying to me.
Okay, how about a massive transfer of wealth then to
Well,
us?
there's
How
still
about that?
there's still boomers, okay? There's only so much we can ask of them.
Yeah, they're not even giving
Well,
them
there's
money to
supposed to
One
be a
step at a
transfer
time.
of wealth, but
Buy Bitcoin.
there really isn't. Like, I know.
Buy gold.
I don't know any. I'm not getting anything.
Buy gold, buy
But
Bitcoin.
I think the general, I think your statement, Vince, cannot be underscored enough. You're 100% right, because if you can open the door on JFK, all of a sudden the deluge falls. But I think that the most important issue that we've got to get full disclosure on is not JFK, it's 9/11.
Right.
9/11 is the big enchilada. If that one breaks, then I think governments will fall. And I do think eventually that will happen. What will necessitate that is probably either a war or a financial crisis. But the questions, the doubts are already there. If that is disclosed and it's different monumentally from the official narrative, and we all know that it is, and certain countries are implicated, governments will fall. And I do think that's where we're headed.
But it has to be done in a timely manner. If that happens in 50 years, we're going to be in the same situation where nobody cares.
As things get worse, the pressure will build and the timeline will accelerate, right?
Yeah.
Look, if we go to war with Iran, okay, look at what's happened since October of 23. All right. The pressure, I would say the illumination of the APAC issue has exploded. And you're right, Twitter is not necessarily a representative sample of the whole population, but you don't need to red pill the whole population. What you need is an empowered and organized minority. That's what we've seen from the other side, right? Subversion really just needs to monopolize the arms of power, if you will. That's it. We don't need to get the whole population. We just need to get a sufficient minority. 9/11, I think, is that big enchilada that could do that. That being said, if we go to war with Iran or we have another financial crisis, everybody knows where the spotlight's going to go. Okay.
Right.
And I think that's where we're headed.
Right, and people will have time to sort of they'll be like, "Whoa, what's going on? Let me start to look into this. Let me start to look into that." And you have a lot of this funding going away from shows like Tim Pool and Ben Shapiro. I don't even know how he survived this long, to be honest.
Ben
Daily
Shapiro?
Wire is
Watches
like
his show.
it's the 800-pound gorilla of the conservative, Con Inc., Judeo-Christian, media sphere.
Right, and if
It's
they
like
fall,
the top spinner on Facebook.
Oh yeah, and they also have like some of the biggest mailing lists, email lists, phone numbers. They've been that's one of the ways they make the money is by selling it to like the DeSantis campaign, for example.
I don't know that they'll actually like totally collapse because that they're getting money from Jewish organizations.
Of course,
they're getting
right.
money from Israel. But if like Tim Pool, some of these other people, like I have this tweet up, James Lindsay, right, is another guy that's been going after Ian Carroll.
If you're a mouse, there you go.
And he recently said that he was going to unfollow him as well. I saw some tweet where he was like, "I'm unfollowing you, Ian Carroll."
Please do.
But there was this like argument that they had where he started to try to make this thing popular, the woke right. Right, this was his thing. He was trying to make popular, and Ian Carroll was one of these people. And he tried to debunk Ian Carroll at some point by posting a debunking posted by an account called Awesome Jew. Do you guys remember
That guy's a
this?
Mossad agent.
Yeah, we know him.
Yeah, and he was like, first thing is like the AIPAC didn't even exist in 1963. It did. It was called the American Zionist Council. And yes, JFK was trying to get it registered as a foreign agent. But, these are the people, James Lindsay, Ben Shapiro, Tim, others who are
Jordan
trying
Peterson.
to protect this, stop this, Jordan Peterson, stop this from happening. And I think it's inevitable. I think these people are going to get destroyed. We are going to win. It's like Cameron said, you don't have to red pill everyone. You just have to take control of the messaging, take control of the narrative. If Daily Wire falls, Tim Pool falls, these like controlled opposition companies, organizations fall, we're going to win. And then eventually, where are these people going to get their news from? It's not just the boomers.
Not so fast though. What if they totally take control of free speech? I mean, we've seen Mahmoud Khalil. We've seen him get arrested. We have this clip from Philip Giraldi from Judging Freedom. I think this was today, talking about how it's a very serious threat to free speech and is going to affect probably all of us in this sphere.
Oh, no. Oh, I have it muted.
Production meeting.
About all of this is this is being pushed, nevertheless, by the administration. And it clearly is the intention of the President of the United States to ignore what the judges are telling him and to go ahead and do what he wants to do anyway. So once we get in that kind of hole, how do we ever get out of it? We have a person who is in charge, who believes that everything that he believes is the truth and is right, and what he believes has to be applied to any citizen whenever he deems it possible to do so. I mean, this is the kind of door that's opening that could lead to people like me and you being deported. I mean, if Donald Trump decides that what we say on this show and what we write and what we are and the viewpoints that we hold are viewpoints that are not compatible with what he believes and what they said the clowns that he surrounded himself believe, then the sky's the limit.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I'm very concerned because I think that he deliberately did this as a pretense to prosecute people like us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've been warning about this happening. I don't really care.
And
they
sales
can
is
come
the
to my
same.
house.
Land and expand, right? That's what they want to do. They want to establish a beachhead. They're going to use, people that nobody cares about, like an immigrant or Palestinian or whatever.
Right.
Nobody, quote unquote, that nobody cares about.
Right.
That, rank and file Americans don't. And then they're going to land and expand from there.
Yeah.
Right? That's the plan.
Do you think is it going to be that they're going to allege that, if you speak out on this issue, then you are aiding and abetting terrorists. Therefore, you are subject to prosecution because you opened your mouth and exercised freedom of speech. That's basically
could be. I mean, and that's why they're going.
Go.
And of course, that's why they're also starting at the universities.
Yes.
Students who have no resources, no backstop, who have a promising future, that they can ahead of them that they can hold over their heads, right? And you look at things like these anti-BDS laws that now 38 different U.S. states now have anti-BDS laws and some form of laws forbidding anti-Semitic speech and association of some sort. 38 states. It started with one state. Now it's to 38. Right, and there are more states now that are still that are considering it. And this is now a year and a half old, and it's up to 38 states now. So it's beyond what's on Wikipedia.
We didn't do a segment on this because I was asked specifically not to, but we're going to do it real quick. They attempted to ram through a law in Boise last week. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago that would have basically criminalized anti-Semitic speech under the malicious harassment statute? So any Idaho legislators that are watching, you need to repeal the malicious harassment statute.
Did I ask you not to talk about this?
No, my contact in Boise.
Oh,
did.
okay.
Yeah, and so
I was
this
like,
is
that
how
wasn't
they
me,
operate,
right?
right? They
Look,
operate incrementally.
the key to all of this, folks, is one word: enforcement. Okay, you can pass whatever law you want, you can outlaw whatever speech you want, but you must have the mechanism in place to enforce it. In China, for example, you have an authoritarian regime. That regime has an army of civilian informers and enforcers that's bigger than the Chinese Communist Army. Okay, it's massive. Even the Chinese Communist Party, and I use that term loosely because they're not really communists. That's a discussion for another time. But they have limits to the numbers of people they can disappear. Okay, and they do disappear people. It happens. But if they disappear too many people, all of a sudden you get a revolution. All right. So again, there is this sort of outer layer or inner layer, depending on how you want to look at it, that constrains their power based on enforcement. Now, if you look at the United States, we just witnessed what many people believe is the largest PSYOP in the history of the country. That was COVID. Now, what effect did COVID have on the population? Did everybody just sort of lie down, put their head in the sand, and all of a sudden believe everything that the state says? Well, some people did that. But I think if you look at the numbers, what it really did is it destroyed faith, trust, and credibility in legacy institutions across the Western world, not just in the US, but across Europe, Australia. People no longer believe governments, and this is well documented. So I say all of that because this is going to work in our favor. The more they blow this issue up, what we're going to see is that their enforcement mechanism is lacking, and that's when you're going to see massive backlash.
Yeah, I think like a lot of people are saying in the chat, well, why would Tim Pool fall? He just got a big deal with Rumble. Not necessarily fall, and it's not really it's not necessarily Tim Pool. It's just Tim Pool. It's like these conservative ink talking heads are sort of forced into discussing this by us, right? I saw this tweet. It's actually kind of funny. This dude named Blair White. He says, "Call me a Nazi, but I'm starting to think Israel had something to do with it." So it's just kind of interesting. Like we are their. It's people like us that are their viewership. And if they start to see that their audience is like calling them out on their bullshit constantly, then they are forced to talk about it. There's always going to be controlled opposition. They have an endless amount of money to pay for controlled opposition.
They print the money. They make the money.
Right.
They print it out of thin air. They can never, never run out.
But this is, I think, this is snowballing, and I think people are not going to fall for it for long. Like it's not just boomers. It's us. It's Gen X. It's millennials. It's like Gen Z.
October 2023, we knew about AIPAC and a few other people, but nobody in general knew about AIPAC in October 2023. Now everybody knows about AIPAC. And everybody knows that every congressperson has an AIPAC guy except for Thomas Massey.
Thank you, Thomas.
But a year and a half ago, nobody knew any of those things.
Now imagine when people know that Israel killed JFK, and then Israel did 9/11, and the USS Liberty, and
Epstein was working from Assad.
Epstein, like that's a big one. Epstein's the next one, I think. He's talking, Cam was talking about 9/11. I think that's going to come after the Epstein thing. But once people start to find out about Israel and NUMAC and the 6-Day War, and
that's a good point. They've actually delayed the release of the USS Liberty files.
They did.
Just in December, they delayed the release of the. So you have the Seth Rich files. Seth Rich is Jewish. You had Bernie Sanders, Jewish. Those files have been last week. Those files released. That was delayed. The Epstein files delayed. The Liberty files delayed. 9/11 files delayed, and it looked like for a while the JFK files were going to be delayed. What's the theme here? There seems to be a theme emerging.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, Sam. And the issue is, Vince, you're 100% right. Why does the deal with Rumble mean squat? It doesn't, because ultimately media is a business. And it's a business that sells a product. And like any product, that depends on the market. And what Vince and Sam and the rest of us are saying is that the media marketplace is shifting, and it's moving very, very quickly. And the middle space where Tim Pool and Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro, that space that they once occupied is vanishing very, very fast. And so what you're seeing is this tectonic plate shift in the alternative media space in our direction. And that will happen very, very fast. Go back to the end of the 90s when Fox News introduced the O'Reilly factor, which started as the O'Reilly show. That completely shook up the mainstream media landscape. That is exactly what's happening here, and we know what the issue is.
And then like the stuff where they start cracking down on free speech or whatever, I think it's gonna they're gonna be less likely to do stuff like that when this message becomes more normalized.
I think
Right,
we're in a new
definitely.
situation. I think
Yeah.
we're in a new era where they can no longer, it's especially since 10.7, it's no longer tenable to just keep nuking people off these platforms and deplatforming people, debanking people, deboosting people, and banning them out like a Stefan Molyneux blanket ban.
Yeah.
You know what they did to Nick or what they did to you, Vince. You know, and a lot of people, they're just like, we're just going to erase them from YouTube and from Twitter and from Reddit and Facebook and Instagram, and they're just going to, they can't do that anymore. There's too many people that are carrying the torch.
Yeah, the other issue too, you're right, Sam. And the other issue too is that this is not just about politics, right? A lot of people think that, there's political media and there's sports media. What we're seeing is a kind of convergence. And so this issue comes up if you like the National Basketball Association. If you're into the manosphere, this issue comes up. If you're in the cryptosphere, this issue comes up. So it's inescapable. And as you said, the more they try to smash it and corral it, the more it's going to spread.
There was this Netflix documentary, or not documentary, like mini-series I was watching last night, and it was called Adolescence. It was about like this 13-year-old boy that like killed one of his classmates or something, fiction. And they directly named Andrew Tate in the it's like it was top 10 on Netflix.
What?
Yeah,
Wow.
they directly named Andrew Tate. And so they were talking about the manosphere, and they were like, oh, this emoji means 80-20 rule, where 80% of women are attracted to 20% of men, and it's this Andrew Tate shite. It was this like British miniseries that was like top 10 on Netflix. So the fact that, and I remember watching Andrew Tate before even COVID, before he became who he is. Like when he was talking about Corona, like the COVID thing, when he was first popping up, the fact that like shit like that is getting mentioned means we're winning.
Because they're having to push back on the young.
They have
That's
to
definitely
address
true.
us.
I was watching, I was at the sauna a little bit ago, just before the show started, and I was listening to my crypto podcast, and this guy, TFTC, one of my favorite podcasts, and this guy, Mel Madison, never heard of him before, never seen any of his stuff before, but it was really interesting because it's like all of a sudden I'm like, holy crap, I'm listening to Cam. And it's like, yeah, there's going to be a financial collapse. They're going to revalue gold. And by the way, this Israel stuff is really going to mess with Trump. I think he's too pro-Israel. And I'm like, holy, what? This is a normie podcast. This is not like some anti-Semitic whatever podcast. This is like a made for normies
if you're
about Bitcoin.
Normal American, like, they don't necessarily hate Israel or have a problem with it, but they're starting to notice that like way too much attention is being paid to Israel and not America. And they're like, okay, I don't mind us being friends with Israel or doing some stuff for Israel, I guess, whatever. But like, I'm an American. I voted for Trump for American stuff. And it seems like all he's ever doing is Israel stuff.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest. I am still open to the idea of like, if somebody can approach me and explain to me how supporting Israel is in America's best interests.
What?
If somebody can explain to me how supporting Israel is in America's best interests, I will listen to them.
Let me
consider
reframe that.
The point of it is that nobody can do it. And for 8 years now, nobody's been. They're God's chosen people. It's biblical prophecy. We have to do this. God said it.
Okay, for
if you
the
don't
record,
bless the Jews, you'll be cursed. And it's like,
Where's
what
our
is
blessings?
In
Where's
no
our blessings?
circumstance will I be receptive to supporting Israel. In no circumstance. I do not agree with him. I disagree. I disavow.
I'm not saying.
I disavow.
I'm
No, he's
saying
just
that
saying
I'm
like if it-
open to somebody approaching me with some thesis that has something other than God said so. God gave them this land. They're chosen. They're special.
The problem is it's just going to be retarded, like James Lindsay quoting "awesome Jew" to debunk you on like that's going to be their explanation. And,
Right.
dude. And the thing that Cam was talking about, now that you're mentioning this podcast, like just sort of sound, or this guy sounding like Cam. Cam was talking about how if you're into the NBA, like it's there, and what he was referencing was the Dallas Mavericks trade, right, with Miriam Adelson, how they took over the team.
Holy
right?
crap!
They took over the team, and they traded. What was the player's name? Cam, you're into basketball.
Luka Doncic.
Yeah,
Luka Doncic.
They're like most popular, best player, because they were trying to basically threaten Texas into allowing their casino to be built. Like that's literally what happened. And then you look at Stephen A. Smith. AF Post has been posting all of these like screen caps and videos. Stephen A. Smith is like he's like one of the most popular, if not the most popular sports announcer out there when it comes to football, when it comes to basketball, when it comes to baseball. And he's liking like Nick Fuentes tweets.
Yeah.
Defending Candace Owens.
He's defending Candace Owens. He's talking about he's like liking tweets about Israel.
This is not going to be allowed to develop organically, though. They are going to do something to try to stop it. The elites have clearly overplayed their hand. They've massively undermined their position. We do have a clip from Professor David Betts. He has written about the Civil War in Western nations. Hit it.
Loading.
We got to do something about
what
this.
what those machinations on the part of the British elite at that time represented was effectively elite overreach, which is a term often used in discussion of domestic turmoil in foreign societies, a situation in which elites essentially have exceeded the boundaries of their own legitimate capability in ways that had the tendency to undermine broader faith in the coherence and the validity of the status quo.
Right. And I think the camera brings us up a lot. It's possible that we have too much faith in the elites and their abilities and their intelligence, and they are frequently overplaying their hands. So I think that what we're going to see is some kind of erratic reaction to the way that this is developing organically, and that's really what I'm concerned about.
I do want to highlight, speaking because you reminded me of this. I actually had somebody in Irving, Texas, reach out to me this week. Because the Adelsons are very active in Irving, Texas, and they basically paid off the city council there to allow them to rezone so they could build a casino, even though state law says that gambling is illegal. So there is a growing consciousness in Irving, Texas, about who the Adelsons are, who they're connected to.
Okay, that's great.
That's
good news
great.
for us.
Yeah.
That is good news for us. The fact that somebody in
on.
Irving, Texas is calling Dave Riley to be like, yo, what can you do to help the GOP down here? I'm like, well, buddy, do you want to get assassinated this week? Because we could do that.
Well, we're gonna maybe we'll see
Texas
some viral
assassinations.
like city hall clips where people are like, they're Jewish or something like that.
There was comment earlier this week. I think it might have been Monday night. There was public comment in Irving, Texas City Council or whatever, and they had, I think, 4 speakers that were all for the Adelsons' new casino resort, and 8 hours of testimony against. And the city council voted 6-5 to rezone, even though it's illegal.
And whatever they paid, they got it cheap. Because, you look at Miriam Adelson, she gave Trump $100 million, and now they're going to get hundreds of billions and trillions of dollars worth of benefit.
Gambling.
Right?
We need to boycott Las Vegas. Boycott Las Vegas.
That's crazy.
Stop gambling, people. Yeah. Anyway,
so they get a 2-for-1. They get what's best for Israel and what's best for them and their casinos.
Yep.
Going back really quick, Dave, to your point about, I would like somebody to explain what we're getting, what benefit we're getting. Occasionally, you will get somebody who tries to explain the benefit, like, Israel provides us with critical intelligence. Say. You'll hear that one a lot, or maybe, that's the one you hear the most. If you look at all the aid that we've given to Israel since 1951, and also the aid to Egypt and Jordan to play nice with Israel, so that's really also Israel aid.
Yep.
And you compound it using the average annual risk-free return, on long-term U.S. bonds. That money that we've given Israel and Jordan and Egypt would now be about $10 trillion. That's how much money we've given to Israel, Jordan, and Egypt since 1951. It comes out to, in present-day dollars, $10 trillion.
That's incredible.
So now if somebody says, well, Israel does do stuff for us, and then they give you a list, say, was it worth $10 trillion?
Right?
Yeah.
Was it worth $10 trillion?
No,
Well,
but the intelligence.
We've got a list of Jewish blessings: communism, sodomy, pedophilia, gay marriage, transgenderism, pornography, usury, white replacement, endless wars, child trafficking, media tech censorship, mass vax campaign, racial tension, open borders, feminism, and Antifa.
Is this in North Idaho?
And by the way,
I think it might be.
a lot of
I don't know.
people would look at that and be like, what does that have to do with Jews? But let's just take one, for example, open borders. For those of you who saw the last 4 years of Joe Biden and you witnessed Alejandro Mayorkas presiding over, 10 to 12 million people invading the United States, Alejandro Mayorkas is a Zionist Jew.
Yes,
so
he
that's
is
where
Jewish,
that comes from.
Yep.
And you
that's
can look
true.
up the gates of Toledo if you want to know more.
Yeah, no, he was also a board member of HIAS,
Yep.
the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society.
Yeah, he was.
Who spends millions and millions of dollars moving people from South America into North America and then resettling these people around the United States.
Yep.
Yep.
When we started the show, we were like, we don't want to become the Jew show. We don't want to be talking about it all the
Yeah,
time.
but it just keeps coming
But
up.
it just keeps coming up, and I do think that this shift in alternative media towards the recognition that this is a major problem and is the root of most of the problems that we have in this country.
I want to talk about UFOs.
Oh, yeah?
right.
Not really.
Yeah,
And
look,
let's take another one on that list,
it's-
Jewish blessings,
it's
pornography.
Coming,
You know, who owns OnlyFans?
Yep.
You know, a Jew.
And
Right.
he donates
Yeah.
the money
he
to
donates
APAC.
he's the largest donor to APAC.
Yep.
Yep.
So if you're getting on OnlyFans and doing your business with these naked women, you're basically contributing to
Or naked
genocide
men.
and the occupation of the American government.
Cameron, what were you going to say?
yeah, look, it comes up because they are the dominant, certainly not the only, not the monolithic group of elites that are behind the wars overseas, the banking system, behind our disastrous foreign policy, our drug war, our open borders, all the things that you mentioned. But I routinely, whenever this subject is discussed, as most of you know and are probably annoyed by at this point, I quibble with the term elite, because elite means excellence. It means competency. Now, I routinely get into these discussions with people who will say, well, whatever you say, whatever you do doesn't matter. The bankers win, right? You'll hear this again and again and again. But in that short clip that we just played a moment ago, what's beginning to happen in the Western world is this concept of elite overreach. Now, if you reject the term elite and you substitute for it something like an asset holder or a financier, okay, or just a bureaucrat, which is really who's
class. I
running
like
the Western
parasite
world.
class myself.
What you begin to understand is that these folks have lost complete control and awareness of the societies that they're running. That's what's really going on here. And so that gentleman earlier was talking about the dissolution of England as a country, basically falling into civil war. We're seeing similar developments in the United States, okay? And I would argue across Western Europe. We've got multiple crises. I've talked about this. You've got a banking crisis. You've got a government fiscal crisis. You've got a border crisis. You've got a fentanyl crisis. It's all adding up. The point being this: subversion is not synonymous with competency. And in many cases, subversion undermines competency.
Right.
So what you've got is an entire class of elites. I refer to them as the gerontocracy, right? Basically a bunch of folks that are touting the old tactics, the old talking points, et cetera, and that's all they know how to do. There is no concept of how to build or construct. And what that suggests is that as we go into these turbulent waters, as wars overseas get worse, and the economy buckles at home, and the border crisis intensifies, et cetera, you're going to see a real breakdown in social cohesion that's going to overwhelm the legacy elites. That means that we've got to build a counter elite and get ready for it.
Right.
because
This is a
that's
dangerous
coming. That's how the
position.
game ends.
Absolutely. This is a dangerous position for elites to be in. And we do have the potential for this movement to extend into a mass movement. I think we have a clip along these lines.
We do.
Really is that whereas Islamic extremism or Islamism, that combination of Islam and fundamentalism and our political fundamentalism is ultimately an extremist movement within a minority community, whereas the emerging anti-status quo ideas, identity movements within the white community have the potential for mass mobilization on account of the fact that the white population is still the majority population of the country. you need a mass population to support a mass movement. So that combination of factors, and particularly the potential for radicalization effectively of the majority community, is extremely worrisome from a societal cohesion, from the perspective of someone who might be worried about the outbreak of substantial violent domestic.
And that's something that we forget on the right because we're so focused with replacement, as we should be, with birth rates and with the dwindling white population in the United States. But we really only need something of a critical mass. And I think that the elites should be incredibly worried that we are going to reach that. And I think that what we're witnessing, all the stories that we've talked about, is this elevation of white solidarity, white consciousness. And I think that they're freaking out.
They're definitely concerned, but the mechanism by which the radicalization happens goes back to what Vince has been talking about the whole show. It is peeling back the layers, layer by layer by layer, of all of the corruption, the abuse, the injustice that's been done to the white population directly by the legacy elites, by the Zionists, by AIPAC, and all the rest of it. So effectively, what's happening is you've got a counter mass propagandist movement that's emergent, which is us, and we are awakening the population. That, combined with things getting really bad, that's going to create that mass mobilization.
So we also have another clip. This guy, who was not familiar with, his Alex Craner. He's a market analyst, but he has something really insightful to say about how the ruling oligarchy is going to, well, typically, historically, has rid the nation of the threat from the majority class. And then he also has some commentary on what typically happens with the wealth.
And at some point, the system breaks. And usually the ruling oligarchies throughout history for 2,500 years, in these situations, they cry barbarians at the gate. And then they get the, fighting age males. They pack them off to war. They sacrifice them in large numbers. They tell people at home, well, the reason why you can't have healthcare and you can't have any nice things and your pension is gone, well, it's the Russians or it's the barbarians, whoever, whatever the designated external enemy is for the day. You get rid of the, people who could potentially be a threat to you, i.e. the fighting age males. And you start over with a blank slate, and you perpetuate the system from war to war, from crisis to crisis. And throughout this whole process, you make sure that all the wealth of the society accrues to you and your institutions.
Yep. And I think that that's something we definitely have to be concerned about. On Monday, we talked about Bronze Age pervert and how this has all been some massive psyop to get everybody in pristine physical health for
Slunken
service.
eggs, eating raw meat, sunning your balls, swinging a big weight around your head so you can develop some upper body strength so you can go die in a war for Israel.
And that does seem to be what they're posturing to do.
Have you tried to red light the balls yet?
We talked about this on Monday.
No, I haven't done the red light on the balls, but I was saying that there is something about like those EMF, like microwave frequencies where they can like zap your brain and make you hear God.
Yeah.
And
Devin
so
Stack had a lot to say about
You
it.
I've
need
seen
to-
stuff on Twitter before from documents, like alleged documents showing these types of devices.
yeah, like Operation Stargate, different things like that. But apparently you need to go in the sun, touch grass, get a tan. These are good things for you. They're good. They are good for you, but not when you're doing
Especially
it
good
in
for
this.
Israel. Once
Not
they
when
need
you're
it.
doing it. I mean, I'm not saying go out and eat McDonald's and be a fat slob. I mean, I've lost like 60 pounds in the past year. I started going to the gym. It's good to be able, because I've got a family, and you think about that. Like I have to be able to defend my wife. If somebody is trying to prey on my children, I need to be able to try to physically overpower them.
And live as long as possible.
Live as long as possible. But
They
not,
told us the police would do that. And then we saw from
Yeah,
COVID
no,
that the
no.
actual police are going to come after you.
No, I
not the
think we should
attackers.
abolish
Yeah.
the police and replace it with like sheriff supremacy. I believe that the
I like that
sheriff
idea.
I do
should
too,
be in charge of law enforcement, somebody that is actually accountable to the people, not just a city council or a mayor.
agree.
But no, I mean, like you do need to be, getting fit, making, watching your health, not eating the microplastics, not washing your body with soap that has all kinds of harmful detergents in it.
Yes,
And you can get that kind of stuff at northidahotallow.com. I'm
was
so
so
sorry
smooth.
for this shameless plug. But they did just launch sugar scrubs today.
Oh,
so
nice.
if you're like a girl and you're into being clean, they've got
No,
a nice
that's not how you
sugar
use it. Oh, for God's sakes. Okay. You use it, you exfoliate your lips and your elbows and your knees and your feet before you put like a fake tan on or anything like that. You didn't know any of this, did you?
You go fake tanning?
No, it's something you do at home.
Oh, okay.
Do you go fake tanning? I can tell you're not a gay man. That's all I'll say about that. Yeah.
No. Anyway, a lot of the
Lip exfoliation. I like to exfoliate my face.
I've actually they're coming out. I've been using an experimental new product. They're coming out with a hair pomade soon. It's working great. I didn't know that my hair gel had soy in it. Not good for you, and all kinds of other chemicals.
It's making your hair weak and submissive.
Probably, but yes, they've got awesome stuff. Let's see if I can pull this up. This is the coffee soap, coffee scrub, or whatever. My favorite's the sandalwood frankincense. Vince likes to eat the.
We had to
peppermint
shrink
one.
wrap these so
Dude,
that Vint
it's so good.
would stop eating
Would
them.
stop eating them.
Yeah.
Dude, I've been using this.
Did you eat
every
the
day
Elmer's
for
glue in
everything.
kindergarten, Vince?
I bet
Maybe
he
a little
peeled
bit.
it off the back of his hand. We all did.
All right,
I did
this has
bite-
gone on long enough.
I bit the back of the marker and took out the big ink thing and no, but this is good stuff. And you got
I'm
a
excited to
link,
try it, yeah.
right?
I'm going to be
you're
getting
gonna
Sam
it.
be set up,
Parker's
yeah.
going to get a link. So if you buy it from Sam, basically $2 out of every bar of soap will go to Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah, if
He's
you
an
want-
affiliate now.
Right. And if you got a platform and you want a link, reach out to us. What's your email?
I forget. I think it's like North Idaho Tallow.
Oh my God.
I don't know.
Does it
what-
say on the
I don't
package?
know what it is.
On the package
We'll
anywhere?
tell the
Reach out to
sponsor.
us.
Wait,
We'll
what's-
give you a
We'll
what's-
tell
hookup.
the sponsor
what's the
about it. We'll get them
Twitter?
to reach out. Idaho Tallow on Twitter.
Idaho
The
Tallow.
website says
Idaho
idahotallow.com right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
There we go.
So
Contact
idahotallow.com.
them.
let's see. Hold on. What's the Twitter?
Are we going to get some angry emails?
By the way, I
Oh,
rented
they're
my
doing
own tallow
ads.
cooking.
Well, if you like the show, I'm sorry. You need to be able to financially support it. Idaho Tallow on Twitter. I think they've got DMs open.
Okay, cool.
New product alert. Their sugar scrub. Very good stuff.
Sweet.
If you buy it from them right now, we get 50% of the profits.
That is
So
awesome.
That's very good.
Great
You could
deal.
also send us super chats at
people.
thebacklash.net/super chat. This is your last chance to get super chats in before we go. But we're not done. But sorry for the diversion. You need to be getting fit and healthy, not for Israel, but for yourself.
That
Which
is
is
a
what
fact.
BAP is
Perfect.
doing. BAP sucks.
I was
BAP.
unaware of all of this BAP stuff.
You know, I'll tell you another
Yeah, well,
thing.
I knew loosely about BAP, but I didn't know any of this stuff.
I'll tell you another thing that BAP does subtly. They promote a pre-Christian, atheist, pagan, Western vision of Western civilization.
That's no good, yeah.
Right? And so, it's subtle, but you have like Ben Shapiro, who promotes, the browning of America. I don't give a good damn about the browning of America.
Right.
Right? So he's like, so that's like, erasure of white identity. Then you have the BAP sphere that's pushing this paganism, pre-Christian paganism that's denying Christianity. So you combine them together, and what do you have? You have the erasure of white identity and the erasure of Christian identity.
Yep.
And so I call it Judeo-paganism and Judeo-Christianity.
True.
Yeah.
True. These dialectics that they set up. There was something else.
And if you take either side, you support Israel.
Yeah.
Right. Either way.
Either way,
Yeah.
you're supporting Israel.
Either way.
While you're either denying whiteness or your white European heritage or your Christian heritage, you're still supporting Israel.
Right. They keep you in the sandbox,
Yeah.
fighting with one another as they run circles around.
Well, because BAP is Jewish, right?
Yeah, Costin Alamario.
What?
is his
He's
name.
a gay Romanian
Yeah, you didn't
Jew.
know about this? He's a,
No.
Yeah, he's a gay Romanian
Yeah.
Jew.
Oh,
Yeah.
geez, blonde. Where have
Yeah.
you been?
I don't read his Twitter very much. I only know him based on what Nick Fuentes has said about him.
Yeah, well, I mean, so like this is what he'll present himself as, this like Chad kind of area and whatever. Like I searched Costin Alamario and this is what pops up. That's not what he looks like.
No.
This is what he looks like. He's a twink.
He's a
no.
dweeby
He's an
gay
absolute
Romanian Jew.
weirdo, loser, and he hangs out with people like Barry Weiss and
Israel spy.
I believe that they were
Yeah.
even doing something. Was he at Columbia?
Yes,
by
they
the
were
way,
together at
He was
Columbia.
at Columbia University, and they were attempting to get professors fired for anti-Semitism
Oh,
back when he was a
no.
student in like 2003, 2006.
But he has a big following in right-wing communities.
Yeah, because he's a subversive
They've
op. He's
infiltrated.
an op that was deployed by Peter Thiel and the assholes at Palantir to subvert the right and to make them pro-Israel. And that's why you've got these idiots like Martin running around talking about the only way you can win is by being a Zionist. You know, and then Patrick Casey and the whole rest.
All these
Disaster.
people like James Lynn, they're all connected. They're all together. They're all the
Talmudic network.
the controlled
Yeah.
op that we talk about. Yeah, he's an op.
Yep.
We should do an alternative network
Who's who?
infograph.
Oh, right.
We should.
Yeah.
We should.
We should. I
Yeah.
think
Alternative
I've seen
influence
esoteric shaggyism on Twitter
Love
is
him.
really good with this
Love-
stuff.
love Shaggy.
Yeah.
Shout out
Shout
to
out to
Eso
Esoteric
Shaggy.
Shaggy.
Who is this? I gotta.
Esoteric Shaggyism. He's like been documenting all of this stuff. He's been doxing some of their people. You know, and it's like people come at me for being friends with like Arthur Bloom or something like that. And it's like, yeah, Arthur Bloom doxed BAP. Like, screw you. That was a service to this country. Like, I don't care. You know, doxing bad, blah, blah, blah. And generally speaking, yes, it is, but not when they're like subversive actors like BAP or all the people in his.
Hey, all of us show our faces. I'm kind of sick of this anonymity.
Well, you need the Anons. We love the Anons. We love the Groypers.
We do.
I
They're
do.
necessary.
That is true. And a lot of people do have normie jobs, and we need people plugged into normie communities.
We need the elite. We need people that are making money and building families, building communities, building businesses. Because you know, I think
And
that
we need one billionaire.
we need at least
one. Just
one
one?
billionaire.
Just one.
I know.
Just one.
Is it too much to ask for a billionaire?
one.
Please.
I'd settle for an 800 millionaire.
yeah, really.
Cam, are you a billionaire?
I'm not a billionaire.
Damn it.
I wish I were.
Foiled again.
I don't know. He wears a big ring. I kind of think
does
he's
have
lying
that
to
big ring.
us.
Yeah.
Have you ever punched anyone with that ring?
How much do those Temu LED lights cost behind you?
That I don't know. Yeah, it's like a co-working space.
Got it.
He's in an
too bad.
undisclosed location again.
Again. You send them all
Right.
over the world.
All right, get your super chats in. We're going to read some. If you have any questions for Mr. Based Sam Parker, then we can answer them.
All right, we'll start off with a big $50 super chat from a real Ubermensch.
A real Uberman.
You got to do the salute.
The
Gotta
triple
go
salute,
50 and over.
quadruple,
Yeah.
quintuple salute potentially over here. Late dono for Devin the goat. Can Rebecca get him to move to Europe so I can finally watch his show live?
Why does everybody think I have like the supreme influence
Over Devin Stack?
over Devin? He doesn't listen to literally anything I say.
That's fine.
Yeah, nor should he.
I just
not
want
a
to do
simp.
another show where we only talk about ham radio.
No,
And we're going to make you sit here with us the whole time.
dude.
Devin's not a simp. He
My
doesn't
husband's like he doesn't simp.
You know, my dad does ham radio.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'll have to plug him into your network. You guys can have a
Get
conversation.
on-
We're
the net.
not talking about ham radio again. My husband's texting me because the interview with Devin was really late. He's like, where are you? And I'm like, these guys won't stop talking about ham radio. I don't know what, like, I'm texting on the show. I'm like, I'll be home soon. The baby's freaking out.
That's funny. A real Ubermensch sent $5. Love you too, Sam. I just tuned in and saw who was on.
Who
Love
was
you back.
on?
I
Real
don't-
Ubermensch.
Is that the correct grammar, though, for that?
What?
I just turned on and saw who was on and saw you were on. I don't know.
Are
I
you
just
gonna
turned
correct?
it on and
I
saw
mean,
who was on.
I'm just
Sam.
trying to- I'm
the
trying to
thing
live
is
up to being a
because
grammar
Sam
Nazi.
Parker's freaking avatar on his Twitter account makes him look like a small Mexican man, and he needs to change so that people recognize you when you're on video. They're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's Sam Parker."
Okay.
So you got to like.
I walked in here and I was like, is this the guy?
Yeah. No, when I first saw him too, I had the same thoughts went through my head. I was like, I thought you were Mexican, dude. Like,
That's funny. Okay, let's see. What's
estás?
happening to my...
Whoa.
There it is. Okay. Mermaid Marie, big $100 super chat.
We really appreciate it.
JFK. Oh, dang it. See, when they send in the new super chats, I have to like refresh it and then I lose it.
You lost
so-
the energy.
Hold on. I know
It's
I
all
lost
over.
it.
Well, we
She's
can
super
see it.
cool.
It's
I see her on
dissipated.
Twitter a lot.
She's real. She's a real person, a real human being. Mermaid Marie sent $100. JFK tried to do the right thing and got his brains blown out. Do you think Trump may have started out with good intentions? Did he sell out because they would have killed him otherwise? Rebecca, you look so thin and stunning.
Oh,
Wow.
no, we don't even need that last part.
Delete.
I
No,
think
I
it's
wanna
what
answer this. I
Pam
wanna
was
answer
saying.
Like they turned
Yeah.
on and they saw who was on. That's all.
Devin has a good stream about this called Trump and the Jews. I think that Trump was deeply infiltrated. I think that he was surrounded by Jewish subversives from day one. I mean, he was a colleague of Epstein. He was a personal friend of Epstein for many years.
And Roy Cohn.
And Roy
Cohn.
Cohn. I don't think
Right.
that he ever had any intention of doing the right thing. I don't really think that he has a defined moral compass. I'm happy of some of the things that he's done. Like he really changed the media landscape. I suppose some of the Supreme Court justices are slightly better, whatever. But is he like a good man that was trying to change America for the better because he wanted to do what was right and moral? No. Anyone?
No, I was just going to say, we talked about this on our stream with Devin Stack the other day. You can go to that at thebacklash.net. And I forget where it is, the Epstein connection. How deep does Trump go? Probably at 47 minutes in, we were talking about this. So it's a good conversation.
Oh, that's cool that you
Oh,
have
you did
that up there.
timestamps?
Oh, I put so much work into this website, and you people never visit it.
It looks
never
so
noticed.
good.
You
And
never
then-
noticed.
Dave, I
And
wanna
then you've
thank
got
you for
Apple
putting that-
I
Podcasts,
do.
the Spotify, all of our sponsors all on here.
You know,
looking
we
nice.
all work hard, except for Vince.
No, I think
Oh, I'm
Trump,
not even showing it on the stream.
But-
what am I doing? Yeah, look here, timestamps.
But
Spotify,
Dave
Apple,
works
blah, blah,
really,
blah.
really hard, and
he
we
does.
do appreciate it.
Good job. No, I think
Thank you.
I think when I get back to clipping, it takes like an hour. It takes like an hour to
back
make
to
one
work.
single
It
one.
takes forever to clip, doesn't it?
Anyway, maybe we'll have to do some like volunteers shortly. Anyway, interns. I think Cam is right. He said this earlier. He's trying to play both sides.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's dangerous.
You can't serve two masters.
It's
can,
hard. It's
yeah.
hard to play both sides. I mean, he did it successfully in terms of foreign policy in his first term, but it's a lot different now.
Yeah.
So
Well, and he's demanding, I guess, a new deal from Iran, right? But he
Right.
tore
But
up
he's
the
the
last
one that
one.
threw
He
up the
tore up the last
JCPOA.
one.
Why are they going to want to make a deal with him when he tore up the last deal they had?
Right.
You know?
right.
Unbelievable. Robert sent $25. How long until the World Jewish Congress, the ADL, or the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, yes, that exists, revises their definition of anti-Semitism to include linking Jews or Israel to JFK's murder? Why are these loud groups being quiet?
That is something we need to be concerned
I
about.
think there is one point already in the 11-point definition that does speak to like holding Jews accountable for certain conspiracies or something. I can't remember the exact verbiage, but holding them accountable, Jesus Christ, or acting as a collective to do this thing or that thing or the other thing. So they might just lump it into one that's already in there. Yeah.
Well, everyone says
IHRA.
Yeah.
Everyone says that, but it's the State Department's definition.
Yeah.
Of
Well, the State
anti-Semitism.
Department adopted it, but
Right,
they
but
still,
it's
even the
on
State
the State
Department's
website.
Yeah, but even the State Department still references the IHRA.
Right, because everything that the IHRA
Yeah.
adds, the
Yes.
State Department adds to their website, I noticed.
Yes.
Every time that they add something.
Yes.
Anyway.
Reinhardt sent $25. Dave, if the horrible Trump impressions persist, I'm going to have to fulfill Sam Hyde's promise to Hassan Piker. Sorry, buddy. It's going to be tremendous.
I
It's
don't
going to
know.
be huge. It's going to continue. The winning will not stop. We're going to win so much.
It's the best Trump impression I've ever heard. It's unironically
No, you know who does a
offensive.
really good one? In our
Lucas
sphere,
Gage.
Lucas Gage.
Does he really?
Yeah.
Lucas,
Yes.
shout out to Lucas Gage.
Hi, Lucas.
We got to have him on the show.
We do love Lucas Gage.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hopefully in person, but he lives far away. He lives super far.
Yeah.
We have to get more money before we start flying people out.
We do.
True.
But I guess you guys are going to have Jake Shields. He's coming up, right?
Well,
Next
yeah.
week?
Yeah,
Or
we
in a
figured
couple
that
weeks or
out.
something?
April
Yeah.
10th, I believe we're doing a special Thursday evening show with Jake
It's going to be
Shields.
awesome.
Yeah, it is going to be awesome.
It's going to be a busy week. I think me and you are doing 4 shows that week. You were doing 3. So it's going to be nuts.
Yep.
But that'll be a big week. April 7th on is going to get pretty hot. And don't forget Father Maudsley
Hot
coming
and
on next Monday to talk about Vatican II, Christian Zionism, and all kinds of other fun stuff. Bill Biss and $25. Hopefully this Israel first crap weakens with Zoomers. So many historical events that need a more accurate interpretation.
What you mean, Bill Viz?
What do you
talking
mean?
about?
Send us another super chat and elaborate on that a little bit. No, I'm kidding. Big Mad Lad sent $5. Is there anything Trump has done so far that could give us hopium? Any chance we get mass deportations? Or are we just going to get more H1Gs?
Yeah.
Wait, I did see something about like 700,000 arrest warrants. Did you guys
But
see?
that's arrests. That is,
Yeah, I
and
know.
people are
Those are
conflating
warrants.
that
Those
with
are warrants,
deportations,
yeah.
right? And they've let a lot of the people that they arrested, like back in January and February, they let a lot of them go.
Yeah.
So they're not deporting those people.
Right, because they can't deport them because the law. Here's a list of the names. 700,000 indictments who are arrested. So like, yeah, because there's the ICE detainment facilities are at capacity.
Yeah.
And we want to spend that money on Israel instead.
But hey,
we're
well,
going to go
they'll
deport all the
deport
we're going to
students.
deport 1.7 or 1.8 million Gazans, whatever it is now, from 2.2.
Yeah.
After they've killed 400,000 or 500,000 of them, we're going to mass deport all of them. Right?
They'll deport students.
Not for us.
You know, the one thing is that
Sorry.
this show wouldn't exist without Trump, right? All of our
That's
shows wouldn't
true.
really exist without Trump.
I will say there is one thing that should give us opium, and that is they're as haphazard and clumsy as it is, and that's just Trump's way. He is talking to Putin, and hopefully we can avoid war with another nuclear power.
Right.
That is not a small thing. Trump deserves credit for that. I do think he's under a lot of pressure from you-know-who not to talk to Putin and the Russians, but he's talking to them. That is something he deserves credit for.
That's true, but Putin has no appetite to go to war with us. So it's kind of an easy thing, isn't it?
Yes, but I said this, I think a couple episodes ago. We have a runway of time before the war plane launches. We have got to get out of this Ukraine fiasco. And the Europeans are forcing our hand. They're talking about deploying peacekeeping troops. They're continuing to support Zelensky, who's a criminal in Ukraine. And we're turning the aid on, turning it off. Our forces are still there. Things can go wrong, okay? And remember that Putin is under pressure in his own government to do more on his side, all right? Because there's a lot of people that are very unhappy with Putin. They think he's been too restrained, and they want just to widen the war. So this could go off the rails at any time. Let's hope to God it doesn't.
Let me say something else, though, just to expand on what I mentioned. Like, I don't think any of this mass awakening would happen without Trump. Like, people would not be interested in politics. Like,
Fake news.
Most of us wouldn't be interested in politics. Our shows wouldn't exist without Trump. And then also, I just saw this today. Joe Biggs is on. He just created an account January 2025. His almost 18K followers. Like, the January Sixers were released, and they're tweeting.
Right.
And they get to see their kids.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of good in terms of, when we're talking about Trump in particular. And like Cameron mentioned.
I think a lot of it too is that like the pushback is to try and help steer Trump and the admin in a positive
that's why
direction
we're
for
talking
America.
about
That's
this.
why we're
Right.
talking about this,
Right.
not just because we hate Trump. I voted for Trump. You voted for Trump. I don't think you voted for Trump.
I have not divulged how I voted.
It's
Still not
okay. We
going
don't
yet.
want to know. It's fine. But the point
Voted
is
for
that
some
like
Mormon or something.
we want this country to be good. We want our kids to have a chance at life. And I've got people that I'm friends with that are in DC in the administration. I'm sure all of us have some connections to the Trump admin, and we are screaming as loud as we can to try and positively influence the admin. So it's not that we're just over here bitching for no reason. We're trying to do something good. Anyway, we have got so many super chats tonight. We've got to get moving.
Let's go.
Muffington sent $5. Please have Jay Dyer on to talk about the Vatican, CIA, and their relation to JFK and other adjacent groups.
He's
Top tier,
great.
best guy
I love
out there.
Jay.
I want to have Jay Dyer on for a debate against that guy that I interviewed. Did you watch that interview of the guy that he created the Netflix documentary called Christspiracy? He's a Christian, but he believes
What's his name? I didn't see it.
So he did this whole thing. Netflix basically said, we're not going to have your documentary on Netflix unless you take this thing out about the red heifers.
Really?
Yes. So I interviewed him. He's a big filmmaker. He came on my show. It was like one of the best discussions I've ever had, even though I disagree with him on a lot. But I think we should have Jay Dyer on to debate him about some things
That could be fun.
So it'd be
Three
a fun-
moderators.
It'd be a fun
Three
debate.
moderators on a
Yeah.
debate. That could be fun. Big Mad Lad sent $5. The Zionist evangelicals always want to self-fulfill all these prophecies to usher in Christ's return, but they never talk about fulfilling the Aliyah prophecy, which is when all the Jays go back to Israel. Maybe we should help them self-fulfill that one. I mean, it is interesting. Sam and I were kind of talking about this last night. I kind of think that groups like Chabad and other Jewish organizations are kind of saying, let's actually step on the gas with the anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
Because
To all
they
return
want
to fulfill the
they
prophecy.
want Jews in America to feel
The heat,
afraid.
and then go back to Israel.
So that they make Aliyah because, as Cameron pointed out before, I believe that Israel has lost 700,000 citizens in the past year.
Seriously?
Yeah, they have fled since 10/7. It's not just that. They want people to go back to Israel, but of course they also need to galvanize their tribal nature,
Right.
And so they need that external threat to sort of galvanize them to hunker down, to realize that tribalness. Also, the wallets, the pocketbook comes out, right? Donations to the ADL, donations to AIPAC, donations
Yep.
to SPLC.
Especially since all of the USAID money is drying up.
Yeah.
Right, so they need that. They need those donations, and when people
Cars
get scared,
for kids.
absolutely,
Anonymous. It's Cameron. Did you have something?
Go ahead.
Okay. Anonymous sent $100. So much.
Yo!
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Salutes.
$100. So much information coming out today. I'm glad you guys are here to help people make sense of it all.
Oh,
You're
thank you
welcome,
so much.
Anonymous.
Thank you.
Aggie Jet Pilot,
Yo!
$50.
$50.
Love the show. Keep up the black pilling.
What? I feel like we're not
We're not
particularly
blackpilling hard
black-pilled,
enough.
yeah. No, Cameron's. You guys are all really positive.
I definitely could go harder. If
No. We're still on YouTube. We're still on YouTube. It's okay. Go follow him on X, based Sam Parker. He'll go harder over there. Addicted to Drums sent $25. Cameron, could you speak on your assessment of the real estate market, and is there a crash coming?
Well, Vince, what do I think on this one?
How many times have I had you on to talk about this on my show?
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot, and Vince is very unhappy with me because I've told him that there will be a correction in the real estate market. I'm not a real estate expert, but the people that I follow and trust tell me that it's sort of two things happening at the same time. One is that the boomers who own most of the assets and therefore own most of the homes, that they're locked in. Okay, they took out a mortgage at much lower interest rates, and even though their housing prices, or rather the mortgage on their home, whatever, may be falling in value, they're not going to sell. Okay, and there is some evidence that in states like Florida and Texas, people have pulled their homes off the market. Okay, so that's one side of the equation. And those folks tend to cling to the notion that the housing market is stuck. It's just not going to move very much, all right? One way or the other, until you get a decade into the future when millennials have to absorb that extra supply and we don't have the money to do so, which means housing prices will fall. That's one take on it. Another take, which is my interpretation, I guess, is that the baby boomer wealth is extremely leveraged to the stock market. And if the stock market falls substantially, it's not just that the value of their assets will fall, it's that the sentiment in the business community will turn negative. We will go into a recession. And all of a sudden, you're going to see crisis in commercial real estate, in fiscal debt markets. And that will basically bring a broader malaise that will lead to people losing their jobs, and eventually homes will fall rapidly in price. I think that's more likely. There's one other component to this that's very important. In 2008, when we went through the subprime crisis, that crisis was papered over. It was never really solved. What that means is that the government just took a lot of that toxic debt, a lot of those mortgages, which were never really liquidated and expelled from the system. They're still sitting on bank balance sheets, and they're sitting on government books. That means at some point, all that debt has to wash through the system. And that's toxic, right? So that will also add pressure. I think that's going to come to the fore as well. So I'm in the camp where that suggests this is going to happen sooner rather than later. But there are two interpretations. Both could be right.
Interesting. Fascinating. Not financial advice.
This is not financial.
A real
your own
Ubermensch.
research.
Yeah, a real Ubermensch sent $5. Leather Apron Club just dropped a new video covering his Noticing Research database.
He's so
Oh,
great.
I
I
love
had him
that.
on as for an interview on my
Okay.
channel a few months ago. He's
That database looks pretty cool.
Great guy. Yep.
Nice.
Put a lot of work into that.
Yep.
Gorilla Hands sent $25. Great show as always. Cameron, are you going to be making more Men in the City videos? I've been binge watching them all. Keep up the good work, guys.
I'm doing so much Backlash work because of Vince and Rebecca and Dave. I just don't have time for my stuff anymore. So it's all Backlash. No, the answer is I will do some, but it's just not going to be as frequent as I used to.
Okay.
Well, plug your channel. It's Neo-Masculinity.
Let's see if I can pull
It
it up
is
real quick.
criminally undersubscribed.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
at,
Neo-Masculinity, Men in the City, Substack, and yeah, I do create content. I may be shadow banned, I don't know, but I have not had a ton of time, and obviously we're all trying to get the Backlash off the ground. But yes, my goal is to do one video per week, hopefully starting in April.
Nice.
yeah, at Neo-Masculinity. on
That's actually
YouTube.
underscore. Or
No,
I
it's
see
a
hyphen.
hyphen.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
looking at the Instagram there. Yeah,
Instagram.
sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Check him out. Great content. Great thumbnails. Better thumbnails than ours.
True.
Sorry, I'm kidding.
Some are
you
better than
nagging-
others. Some are better than
nagging
others.
Vince?
Yes, okay, we did that one. Okay, Explaining Israel US sent $5. Before 1960, this is 1 out of 3. He split this up over 3. Before 1967, it was plausible that Israel would be conquered by its Arab neighbors, after which the U.S. realized Israel could annex neighbor territory as well. Before this, the U.S.-Israel relationship was ambivalent. The U.S. approached Israel after 1967, offering Israel a military edge in return for the United States' influence over Israeli foreign policy. The U.S. uses this to avoid major war in the Middle East. If the U.S. relationship with Israel ended, the same rhythm that stopped in 1967 will return, where Israel's neighbors will start to ponder its destruction, after which Israel, with its housing pop problems, will start to ponder their territory, leading to a large war. This is answering Dave's question. So basically, there's no. So if we stop supporting Israel, Israel ceases to exist, and then everything goes back to normal.
Well, there's that component to it, but I think, and maybe I'm misinterpreting, but I hear this a lot from people. In some cases, people that are very well informed and sharp, and their claim is basically the inverse of what we've said on this program. So, what Sam and Vince and Dave and Rebecca have said for most of the show is that basically we in the United States are dominated by foreign power, right? Certainly by a subversive elite that represents a third-party interest. However, there are more than a few people who believe it's the other way around. They think that actually it's the U.S. government, that it's the CIA that leverages Israel and all of their security apparatus or intelligence apparatus for our ends. I don't buy that. I've never seen any evidence to support that. I really haven't. But there are people who believe that.
Cameron, have you noticed all the Israeli politicians like Benjamin Netanyahu who put on the cowboy hat and go to the Washington Monument and pledge allegiance to George Washington?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of it. A lot of it.
Really interesting.
Yeah, no, I don't buy it, Sam. I don't buy it.
Yeah.
I think it's quite the reverse, and I think that's what these disclosures are demonstrating. And to Vince's point, I think the evidence for that is overwhelming, which is why they have to redact what they do. But I've met a lot of folks that are convinced that Netanyahu is a tool of Trump. I just don't see it.
No.
I want to
think
go
it's-
back to something real quick, just because you were talking about the 1967 Six-Day War. There was this article about, I brought this up when we were talking about JFK, how Israel deceived the U.S. and built the bomb. There's this one part in there where it talks about a decade later, on the eve of the 1967 Six-Day War, Israel secretly assembled its first nuclear devices. So after JFK died, it was that year where they started to actually build the bomb. I believe that the USS Liberty, they were afraid that the USS Liberty, which was a spy ship, which a lot of people forget, was collecting information on their nuclear Dimona plant. So I think that's why they attacked the USS.
It could be.
I think they feared that. I do happen to know that there were no Hebrew speakers on board the liberty at
Right.
the time. So, I mean, it would have been difficult for them to, and I think they also had specific orders to not listen in on Israel.
They did. That's true.
But that doesn't mean that Israel didn't maybe
think that.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. Because that's what they were doing on the
If
eve of the
only
6 Day
the
War.
USS Liberty files hadn't been
Right.
reclassified.
True. Dan Zamet sent $50. Hey, can I get the salute?
Yo, let's go.
Absolutely. There's the salute. Enjoy it.
Dag
Vegas. What?
Dag on it.
Dang Zamet.
Dang Zamet.
Dang Zamet. Vegas 96 sent $5. Can you debunk
Vegas.
the Israel Genesis being blessed boomer talking point? We will on Monday. This entire book does it. If You Believed Moses by Father James Maudsley, volumes 1 and 2. Let's see. I got to get it in the light. If You Believe Moses, this book and others do it. There's also a book that I got sent in the mail, Dark Crusade. I believe they talk about it in there too. Basically, like Genesis 3:12 and the surrounding chapters, there is absolutely no mention of the state of Israel. They are talking about Jesus Christ. That prophecy, Genesis 3:12, is a direct reference to Jesus Christ. He is the seed of Abraham that will bless the world. Those who bless Christ will be blessed. Those who curse Christ are cursed. Yada, yada. So that's the true meaning of that passage. We will get into it with
what is
Father
she
Maudsley
making?
more. I don't know, but it smells
smells so
incredible.
good.
If they're chocolate chip cookies, we need a plate.
Yeah. Okay, we read that one. Vegas 96 says, why can't we ambush C. Kirk at these turning points and have a Groiper War II? Actually, it would be Groiper War III because we already had Groiper War II, which was the presidential election. Go for it. I mean, go confront these people. I keep seeing clips all the time.
Well, I mean, you saw what happened when Nick went with Jake Shields. We were, in Detroit for AFPAC 4, and they went to the TPUSA event, and like instantly, Nick and Jake and their crew were stopped by security.
Yep.
You're not
What
going
event was
to get
it
anywhere near Charlie Kirk.
Where you asked about anal sex.
That was at Ohio State University
Battle
on
of
the
Columbus.
Culture War Tour. Yeah, the Battle of
2019.
Columbus, the kickoff.
For some reason, I thought that was a Turning Point USA.
That was a Turning Point USA thing.
okay.
Yeah, the Turning Point USA presents Culture War, and they went around on campuses with Rob Smith, the flaming ex-military
And
homosexual.
they tried to bury that, by the way.
Oh yeah, they have. That was not good for them. And it's funny too because people would come up to me and be like, "I heard you're anti-Turning Point USA." I'm like, "Watch this," and they're like, "Oh my God, they do what?" And so it's like,
It was your finest moment, Dave.
no, it wasn't. My
Yeah.
finest moment was having my 3 children.
Public
getting married.
moment. You know what I mean.
Yeah. Anyway.
It will.
I
will
would
live in
I would
infamy.
just say on this point, look, Charlie Kirk, Tim Pool, and the rest of these folks from Con Inc., they're losing market share, and I think in a year, maybe less, they're going to be irrelevant. All right, yeah, they have a platform to some degree. Yes, they have some money behind them. It's not going to work. These people are losing relevance very, very quickly. Our side is gaining prominence, and that's the way this is going to be resolved.
Amen.
And by the way, your super chats help shows like this gain
That's
that
right.
prominence and
Ha-ha.
displace the Charlie Kirks of the world.
That is
Yes.
true.
Slowly but surely.
God, I would love to
Cancel your
displace him.
Netflix, cancel your Cinemax, whatever you got. Find something that you're not watching, cancel it, and put your money towards these guys.
True.
Or somebody.
Give us your boomer money if any boomers are.
Boomers, you can. We might actually be able to work out a thing where people could leave us stock or something in their will. We might be able
Yes.
to do that.
How about we just get some racist crypto billionaire to give us
Yeah,
2 Bitcoin.
I would love
a bunch
that.
of
Yeah.
Bitcoin,
Like 2
and then
Bitcoin.
we coordinate
can.
this stuff and we start doing
If you go to
Anyway.
the backlash.net, you can actually, there's ways to do recurring donations, for example, monthly, weekly donations. And also, you can pay anonymously with Bitcoin. Every new donation with Bitcoin on our website generates a new address, so your donations can't get tied to other people, and it's all very
every
private.
dollar goes to me pulling out one hair of Sam Parker's
You
beard.
wouldn't.
That would be funny. I would-
Terrible. Shameless. Shameless.
We'll have to add it up all at the end and do it.
That's so mean.
Midnight
it's nice. It's got all
Sun.
different colors in it. and
It is
it's
a very
good
nice
beard.
beard. I love
yeah.
the-
It used to be very bright red. It's
a very diverse beard.
It is. It's got a lot of diversity.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Midnight Sun sent $5. I love seeing Sam on the show, but it always feels like something is missing when Lucas Gage isn't on the panel with him. Aw.
True.
Go follow Lucas on Twitter.
Is he
Lucas
back?
Gage X.
Yes,
and
he's
He's
back.
back.
Got two,
Is
that
he's
his
got
jail?
2 accounts, Lucas Gage X and Lucas Gage XL.
based. Anonymous sent $5. I guess my maximize territory and citizenship strategy for your children by taking advantage of Canada's birth rate in EU, USA, Australia, and Russian inherited citizenship is repulsive to you. Live Nats.
What?
What? Read that one more time. I wasn't comprehending.
If I missed this super chat on the last show, I apologize, but I remember seeing something about this. Basically,
I don't care about inherited citizenship
the idea
if
of
they're white.
maximizing citizenship. So, like, you go to Canada and have an anchor baby, go to Europe and have an anchor baby, and
But
have the kid
we're
get
the only
citizenship.
we're the only country that gives you citizenship for having a kid here.
There's
Yeah.
a few in North and South America, I think, but
You can buy Greek citizenship for like $50,000.
but listen, if
Yeah.
we want Canada, we're not going to like go, have anchor babies. We're just going to go take it.
Based,
it's
right?
not-
Like, I mean, we're not going to have a vote. We're not going to ask Canadians if they want to be part of America.
I don't know about
We're just
Canada,
going to come take
but
it. All
in
right.
most countries, if your baby's born there, they're not automatically a citizen of that country.
Right.
Right.
Just to let you know.
Yeah, that's kind of like an asinine idea, by the way.
That's only us.
You shouldn't be able to get citizenship until after 3 generations of living in a country. That's what St. Thomas Aquinas says. Good enough for me.
You know what I want to do, Dave? Just real quick. I think that for every direct ancestor you have back to 1607, or you could just say even 1776, every direct ancestor you have in your line that's an American, you get one vote. So, like, if both your parents are Americans, then you get 3 votes, yours plus theirs.
Yeah,
if you have
yeah.
4 grandparents, that's 7.
Vince, we're
And
screwed.
then, so if you have like, you could have like, 50, 60 votes.
I would have so many votes.
And okay, you're a new immigrant, they got 1 vote.
Vince and I would
But I
have
got
nothing.
60.
Yeah.
I think it should be landowners and not rental
Nope,
properties.
no. How many Chinese people are going to be able to vote then?
I don't know. I
I
never
don't
even
know
thought about
anything.
that. Anyway, Mr. Bing Bong sent $5. This show is so much better than Tim Pool.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank
That's
you.
high praise.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And explaining Israel-U.S. With another $5 super chat. It is the same reason why in a future Russian relationship we would treat them equally, call them an indispensable civilization, and offer them a co-Mars mission. Russia is a poor shithole, but in the interest of peace, we exalt them and praise them. No, I don't think so. They are more than just a gas station.
Sounds like a
in the
Russia
Middle East.
hater. Sounds
Yeah,
like
it sounds like a Zionist Russian
Yeah.
hater to me. Now let me just do something. Real
It
quick.
is just one thought on this is I don't know if you guys looked at the readout from Trump's call with Putin that happened yesterday. One thing that was odd about it to me, and I'm quoting here, it says the 2 leaders shared the view that Iran should never be in a position to destroy Israel. There's a lot in the press about exactly what that means. A lot of Zionists are sort of declaring victory. I don't know. We'll find out exactly how significant that statement is, but I thought it was rather odd that in a discussion largely about Russia and Ukraine, that came up.
Interesting. Over on Entropy, Lizard Killer sent $5. I liked Blonde and Devin's definition of good. They said it was truth. I think good/Christ is sacrificing yourself for others. Evil, Moloch, is sacrificing others for yourself.
Oh,
True.
yeah.
And liberty, Lucifer, is neutral. Fiat is sacrificing future generations. I agree
That's
with that
true,
last
yeah.
point. True. And
One
Lizard
one other way to look at this, I've spent some time in Asia, and I sort of I do have an affinity for some Eastern views, I guess. But one other way to look at evil is as imbalance, and certainly society can be at imbalance at any given time, but imbalance that's taken too far creates evil. And that's what you see in the world today. You see imbalance with the genders. You see imbalance economically. You see imbalance of power in the United States. A very tiny minority of folks control the whole country. Imbalance is evil, but it's also unsustainable. And there tends to be a rebalancing that's often bloody and very difficult. That's what we're going through today, folks. We're going through a rebalancing.
Yep.
True. They're also going to rebalance the balance sheet and revalue gold. You can get gold at atlasbullion.com/thebacklash. How did I do that?
That was so
That was
good.
actually really good.
Good, Dave.
Just like Jewish levels of shifty transitions here. You're too
He
good
doesn't
at
just
this.
make nice websites.
Atlas Bullion, secure your legacy with timeless value and unmatched quality. At Atlas Bullion, we're dedicated to helping you build a future that reflects your vision and dedication. Whether you are preserving history, planning for tomorrow, or simply exploring unique opportunities, we're here to help guide you every step of the way. Trust in craftsmanship, tradition, and a commitment to excellence as you create something meaningful and lasting. Discover how we can help you achieve your goals today. Atlas Bullion. They're great. They have monthly subscription programs. You can start stacking gold and silver and hopefully prepare for that great rebalancing that we were just talking about.
Wow, Dave.
I am really reaching like Jewish
And they
levels
really
of
like support,
advertising.
and they support our show.
They support our show,
right?
so like we get a little kickback if
They
buy a
are
little
in the
silver.
live chat right now. They watch. They're
They're
actual
fans
fans
of the
of the
show.
show.
As long as the
Wait,
next
are we
one's
allowed
not
to say
Shirley
that?
butt plugs, I'm good.
She's
stop
in
short of
as
that.
like
Does she
Atlas
care?
Bullion. I don't know.
Oh, okay. I don't
She
know.
didn't yell at me last time I said some things.
Good. We're gonna try to have her
Those
on
are
the show
pretty
pretty
cool.
soon. Blunderbuss sent $10 on Entropy. Can we send shekel chat money to Devin with carrier pigeons? Is that the only option left?
Yeah, he lives in the middle of the desert.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's basically it. Lizard Killer sent $15. I am 37 and single with no family, which might be a good thing because I can't be blackmailed. What's the best way to help our cause? Politics? Elon Musking babies with thoughts? Question mark?
Jeez.
If you're 37 and still, my first inclination is if you're 37 and still asking how to help, I'm not sure how much help you're going to be if you're asking.
Are you a guy or a girl?
It's a man.
That's a man?
Yeah, it
Okay.
sounded like it. It's not too late to have a family.
It's not too late to have a family.
Yeah, have kids. Have kids, make money.
Grow wealth.
not for a man. It's
Get wealthy.
not.
Grow your wealth, grow your dynasty,
Build the pile.
build a pile, and, donate to shows like this, build a business.
Share. Yeah.
Build a business where you can give other people jobs
Yep.
because there's going to be, I think, a wave of unemployment with this AI crap that's going on. A lot of these menial tasks are going to be taken over by computers. And
Even coding. They told us to go.
No,
learn how to code, and now
I
AI is
said
gonna
that
take
the
care of
other
that.
day. I was like, what? Don't you think like those jobs AI will take first? Isn't that crazy to think about?
Zuckerberg on the Rogan, remember on Rogan's, on his appearance with Rogan, a few weeks ago, he was talking about how they're going to be replacing a lot of those middle level coders with AI.
AI? No,
Yeah.
I said that like a long time ago. I was like, that's going to happen.
Yeah, it's starting this year.
Because how
for
can it not
Facebook.
happen?
Yeah.
You can have Grok write code right now,
Yeah.
like simple code.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure they have more advanced versions of that.
Yeah.
So we don't need any Indians. I think we can all agree.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
exactly.
should be
like,
sending
No
them back.
Indians. Donate them.
You could start up like
I would just add one thing in response to this person because there's a lot of younger men in particular. I think if you're under 40, you're basically a young man. One thing not to do: don't self-destruct. Right. So a lot of people in these spaces, they become very black-pilled. They just wallow in despair because they end up, I guess, overwhelmed by the negativity that's out there. Part of the way that we win is that we're not infected by the cancerous influences of the other side. You can unwittingly be affected by that cancerous influence if you become too embedded in this sort of, this sort of subversive fight, right? So part of the way we win is that you survive and thrive. So stay healthy, don't self-destruct, don't do things that will cause physical, mental, or emotional harm. And sometimes that may mean unplug and let the process play itself out, right? Just over the long run, understand and have faith that we will prevail because we're up against a cancerous, self-destructive force. It's not us, okay?
Yep.
Interesting. We just got a message that if you use promo code Backlash on Atlas Bullion,
We'll show it.
I'm trying to figure out, okay, go to checkout. Yeah, right here.
Coupon
code Backlash, right down here. If you're buying something from them, they said that you'll get
silver
a free
coin.
gift or something. So
She
definitely do
says
it.
free gold.
Free gold.
Free gold.
Oh, by the way, someone here says it won't necessarily replace programmers, but it would make like a single programmer like 1.5 times more more efficient, which would replace programmers, though, right? Like
So
they
two
wouldn't
guys
have to
can do the
hire.
work of three.
Yeah, they wouldn't have to hire.
So
as
you
many,
can
right,
get
yeah.
rid of one of every three or something.
So yeah, go to atlasbullion.com/backlash. And if you buy any products tonight, use promo code Backlash at checkout, and you will get a gift of free gold.
This is not a Jewish podcast.
is-
Here's a bag of gold.
Here's
some
a
free gold.
bag of gold for listening.
It would
to
never
us.
be free,
Thank you.
though.
I don't know. Someone's paying for it. We're paying for it. Dusty sent $5 on Entropy. Thanks for the
Dusty.
show.
You're welcome.
And I believe, let me just double check over on Power Chat that we didn't get anything else coming in. I thought I might have seen
That was so fun. Thank you so much,
something.
Sam
This
Parker,
is a great
for joining
show.
us.
Thanks for having me.
Oh,
I really enjoyed myself. This is one of the the few podcasts I actually don't miss. You guys, I've watched every episode and enjoyed it.
Aw, thank you.
I encourage everybody to keep watching.
Yeah, hold on. We have two more. A Dissident Dose sent $20. I've tried many natural balms and tallow products over the years. Here to say North Idaho Tallow is the best of these products I've ever used. I will be
Nice.
stocking up to gift my libtard friends for their birthdays. Wow.
I have been getting some
awesome.
DMs
Based.
on Twitter.
Yeah,
too,
some of the first balm products have gone out. The soap takes 4 weeks to cure. So when you go to the website, it says there's a pre-sale or whatever. That's because the soap actually takes 4 weeks to cure. So some of the balms have gone out. Happy to hear that people like it. We will relay that to the sponsors.
And soon we will have tallow lampshades available for purchase.
That's the
We're
plan.
going to get dropped by the sponsors any minute now. No. Anonymous sent, it was CivNat. Canada citizenship gives free health care to a second market. Russia is a superpower. EU is the same. Australia has a large landmass and is isolated. Give your children options. You don't lose anything and only give the benefits. My wife and I have thought about that. We've had honest discussions about like, what if we have to leave for like Greece? What if we have to leave for like Russia? If these laws do get passed and we become like persecuted. I mean, we've got 3 kids. The whole point is giving them a better life than we had. So I have thought about it, but it is difficult. I've tried to looking into getting Irish citizenship. I can't do that. I can't get my Italian citizenship on my mother's side either. Too far removed. I've been in this country too long. So
You're just too American now,
I'm
dude.
too
Yeah.
Hey,
American.
someone says they
American.
donated on Streamlabs Unleashed. And then another guy.
We got one
said
Midnight
from-
Sun, $10. Speaking of red pilling the boomers, former Colonel Douglas McGregor is frequently on Judge Napolitano's show, dropping truth bombs.
True. Judge Napolitano has the best
Judge Nap is great.
series of guests. I love watching every day. I'm like, oh, what did Judge Nap do today?
What was the name of the person over
Unleashed.
on?
Well, hello, listener, and
It
hello
only goes
and
back-
Unleashed.
It
I don't
only
know
goes
what
back
they
so far.
donated on, though.
We're sorry, Unleashed. Shoot us a
Shoot us an
DM.
EMAIL or a DM. We've hit the 2.5 hour mark. I am officially retarded.
2.5 hours is when streaming becomes
No, I
difficult.
know that guy.
Yeah. How do I go back on Streamlabs? I can only see like the last 10 donations on Streamlabs.
know.
What was the I can
Unleashed.
search
Unleashed. We
on
run a
Streamlabs.
professional.
He said on
Thing.
Streamlabs, hello, listener, on Streamlabs.
search. I want to search my events.
Okay.
Okay,
figure it
well,
out.
we'll figure it out. If we
And
need to
we-
send you
we
money,
get a
we'll
We'll
Read
read
it
it
next
next
week.
week.
We'll read it next or Monday. Yeah.
All right.
Please follow Sam on X. That is at Based Sam Parker. This is The Backlash. You can find us on X at Real Backlash, our website, thebacklash.net. Support us on Subscribestar, Patreon. Send your super chats. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us. That was so fun. Thank you,
Thanks for
Sam,
having
for
me.
being
great
in
Had a
studio.
good time. Good time. Thanks for
And
having
we
me.
will see you on Monday with Father Mosley.
Yes, we will.
Yep.
All right.
Bye-bye.
See you guys.
Take care.